Chapter 2362 Falling in Love with You. Translator, otherwise. Li Yuntai glanced at the three of them and said word by word, "All of you will die!" Ha! The three of them from the Heavenly Feather Village raised their heads and laughed. It was as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. Li Dashin and his wife were seriously injured and couldn't exert their full strength. The rest of the villagers from the Cloud Village were like ants. What kind of waves could Li Yuntai set off? I really don't know where this person got his courage and confidence from. Li Yuntai sighed. It seems that you have to choose death. If you want to be arrogant, show us your real strength. Otherwise, you will be a joke. Killing intent flashed in the eyes of the three from the Heavenly Feather Village. They immediately waved their swords and attacked Li Yuntai. They had had enough. If Li Yuntai was a perfect Sir God, he had the right to be arrogant. However, Li Yuntai was only a consummate Sir God, and he was only one person. How could he be arrogant in front of three perfect Sir Gods? Wasn't this a joke? Yuntai, catch! Li Dashin took out the black saber and was about to throw it to Li Yuntai. Although he felt that Li Yuntai was arrogant, he had no other choice but to rely on Li Yuntai. No need. However, to his surprise, Li Yuntai waved his hand and rejected the black saber. Li Dashin was completely dumbfounded. He didn't even want a divine weapon? Did he want to wait for his death? In the blink of an eye, the three from the Heavenly Feather Village had already arrived in front of Li Yuntai. Their terrifying aura was crazily oppressing Li Yuntai. However, Li Yuntai didn't fight back. Instead, he put his hands behind his back. He is really waiting for death. He is indeed a useless coward. He doesn't even dare to fight back. Li Dashin snorted secretly. However, at this moment, Li Yuntai spoke. He looked at the three from the Heavenly Feather Village calmly and said, "You are the one who wants to die. Don't blame me. Are you stupid?" The three of them laughed. Li Yuntai smiled and lowered his head to look at his sleeve. He said respectfully, "Please help me take care of them." Everyone was stunned. Who was he talking to? Boom! Before his voice died, three ferocious auras burst out from the ground. These three ferocious auras didn't come from anywhere else but from within his sleeve. Whoosh! Following closely, three beams of black divine light shot out from his sleeves and headed straight for the three people from the Heavenly Feather Village. The entire process took only an instant. The three people of the Heavenly Feather Village suddenly screamed and looked down at their lower abdomens. There was a bloody hole the size of a fist in their abdomens. What happened? Who hurt them? The three of them turned pale with fright. Look behind them. Suddenly, someone shouted. Immediately, everyone present looked behind the three people from the Heavenly Feather Village and saw three palm-sized black panthers floating in the air. Blood dyed their fur red. His eyes were filled with a ferocious light. It's them, the three black panthers that Gao Shaosan subdued in the Seven Birds Mountain. They've already reconstructed their bodies. This is good. With their help. What is the Heavenly Feather Village? That's right. They are all perfected divine emperors, and they have mastered perfect divine arts. The people of the Cloud Mountain Village immediately became excited. Fu Wintai and the three people from the Heavenly Feather Village felt as if they had fallen into a bottomless abyss. Looking at the three black panthers, their scalps turned numb. Don't you know that we are also in the Cloud Mountain Village? How dare you come to the Cloud Mountain Village to make trouble? The Heavenly Feather Village? I've also heard of it. It's just three perfected divine emperors. Why are you so arrogant? The three black panthers cackled. The three people from the Heavenly Feather Village suddenly showed fear on their faces. Not to mention that their sea of chi had been pierced. Even if they still had their cultivation, they wouldn't be a match for the three beast emperors. How do you want to die? The three black panthers licked their lips. Their bloodthirsty eyes made the three people tremble. They hurriedly said, Sorry, we didn't know you were here. We'll leave immediately. After saying that, the three people used their divine senses to drag their bloody bodies and fled in panic. Leave. Li Yuntai gave you a chance just now. You didn't cherish it. You still want to leave now. Is it possible? I'm asking you a question. How do you want to die? The three Black Panthers' eyes were full of mockery. The three people's faces were pale. They looked at the three Black Panthers with fear. You don't want to say? Fine. We'll give you a way to die. The three Black Panthers smiled hideously. Their bodies suddenly expanded. In an instant, they returned to their original forms. Their bodies were more than 10 meters long. They were extremely ferocious and ferocious. Roar! Following closely, they opened their bloody mouths and revealed their half-meter-long fangs. They pounced toward the three people. Bastards, we'll fight you to the death. The three people knew that they couldn't escape death today. They picked up the combat swords in their hands and charged toward the Black Panthers. You still want to jump around? The three beasts were furious. Divine power rolled out and turned into a divine art. It blasted toward the three people. There was a scream. The three people flew out on the spot. The three combat swords also flew out of their hands. The three beasts seized the opportunity. They rushed forward and bit the three people. Their sharp fangs bit the three people into pieces. Then they raised their heads and swallowed them in one breath. Li Dashin and the others were shocked by the scene. Three perfect Sir Gods were actually swallowed alive by them, just like that. It was terrifying. This feels so good. The three Black Panthers laughed and looked at the three combat swords. There was a trace of greed in their eyes. I just needed a divine artifact. Here they are. Three idiots. They cursed and took the three divine artifacts as if it was a matter of course. Thank you so much. Li Yuntai cupped his hands and smiled. It's nothing. The three Black Panthers waved their claws and looked up at the sky. They were slightly stunned. Where was Fu Wintai? Li Yuntai, Li Dashin, and his wife, Li Yuan, and the people in the village were also stunned. Their attention was on the three Black Panthers. They didn't notice that Fu Wintai had disappeared. They didn't know when he slipped away. Li Dashin landed in front of Li Yuntai and looked at the three Black Panthers with fear. He returned the black saber to Li Yuntai and said in a deep voice, Yuntai, this Fu Wintai must be killed. Li Yuntai nodded. This time it was three people from the Heavenly Feather Village. Who knew who it would be next time? If they didn't kill him, there would be endless trouble. However, there was no way to find Fu Wintai now. Li Dashin took a divine life pill and a spiritual sea pill and shouted, All phenomenal Sir Gods, get ready. Follow me to the Heavenly Feather Village. Li Yuntai was stunned and asked, Why are we going to the Heavenly Feather Village? They dared to come to our Cloud Mountain Village. Of course, we have to pay them back. Li Dashin grinned. They are all dead. The others in the Heavenly Feather Village are innocent. Isn't it inappropriate to do this? Li Yuntai frowned. Li Dashin's meaning was clear. He was going to take people to the Heavenly Feather Village. Yuntai, you are too soft-hearted. Li Dashin pointed to the three Black Panthers and said, If it weren't for their help today, do you think the Heavenly Feather Village would let us go? I'm afraid that our Cloud Mountain Village would be in a bloodbath now. Brother Yuntai, I agree with Brother Dashin. Village leader, we agree too. These people are too much. If we don't teach them a lesson, they won't know how powerful our Cloud Mountain Village is. That's right. We have to deter them. Let the villages within a radius of 1 million miles not dare to trouble our Cloud Mountain Village again. Led by Li Yuan, the villagers also roared angrily. Li Yuntai glanced at everyone, looked at Li Dashin, and said, Be careful! Don't worry. When my Sea of Qi is restored, it will be their doomsday. Li Dashin grinned. About an hour later, Li Dashin and his wife led the dozen, or so phenomenal Sir Gods in the village, to the heavenly feather village. Father, you are finally well. Li He ran to Li Yuntai and smiled happily. Yes. Li Yuntai nodded and rubbed Li He's head. He sighed and said, Shao He, you see, this world is not as beautiful as you think. Li He fell silent. The things that had happened in the past few days had indeed given her quite a shock. Li Yuntai was ready to teach Li He a lesson. Otherwise, with Li He's naive personality, she would suffer a lot when she left the village in the future. Brother Yuntai, how did you reconstruct your body so quickly? Did you get some magical elixirs? Li Yuan calmly asked with a smile. Li Yuntai glanced at the attic halfway up the mountain and said with a smile, I did get some opportunities, but I can't tell you. And you want to keep it a secret from us? Brother Yuntai, that's not very nice of you. Li Yuan said half-jokingly. Ha. Li Yuntai laughed and didn't say anything else. Li Yuntai, it's over. We'll leave first. The 3 Black Panthers glanced at the villagers and said to Li Yuntai, Thank you. Li Yuntai thanked them again. The 3 Black Panthers smiled proudly and flew up the mountain with their heads held high. In the garden, Qin Feiyang sat alone in the pavilion, drinking tea leisurely. Before, he noticed that Fu Wintai was coming with people, so he asked Li Yuntai and the 3 Black Panthers to help. Master, thank goodness you're here. Otherwise, Cloud Village would be doomed today. How was it? Are you satisfied with our performance? The 3 beasts flew over, turned into palm-sized beasts, and landed beside Qin Feiyang, looking at Qin Feiyang with flattery. Not bad. Keep up the good work. Qin Feiyang nodded. One of the Black Panthers asked cautiously, Then your control over us. Don't worry. When I leave Cloud Village, I'll remove your control. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Okay. The 3 Black Panthers nodded and laughed. Qin Feiyang put down the teacup, took out a neatly folded piece of paper, and put it on the stone table. He looked at the 3 Black Panthers and said with a smile, I have a task for you. What task? The 3 beasts were suspicious. Open it and see. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he continued drinking his tea. Chapter 2363. I'm in love with you. Translator. The 3 black leopards looked at each other and jumped onto the stone table. They grabbed the paper on the table and opened it. Nirvana divine fruit, earth flame flower, sky flame grass, green pear divine wood, Mother Earth, chaos divine ginseng, fire condensation divine jade, 9th grade immortal lotus. The 3 beasts looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and said, These seem to be medicinal herbs. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Hearing this, the 3 beasts looked at the paper again. Beside each medicinal herb, there was a lifelike pattern. One of the black leopards asked, Are you going to refine some pills? Don't worry about that. Just help me find these medicinal herbs. If there are enough, I will reward you. Qin Feiyang laughed. These were the medicinal herbs of the Nirvana Divine Pill and the Chaos Divine Pill. There were a total of 7, but each of them was a rare treasure of heaven and earth. However, the so-called rare ones were in other places. In this divine land, it was definitely not difficult to find. For example, the Nirvana Divine Tree and Mother Earth Chaos Divine Ginseng. What reward? The 3 beasts looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly. They didn't care about pills or anything like that. But when they heard the word reward, their eyes lit up. In the past few days in the Black Tortoise realm, although the Fire Lotus didn't tell them anything, as perfect god monarch beasts, how could they be stupid? Looking at the magical castle and the vast Black Tortoise realm, they had long guessed that this person definitely had a great background. Then the reward this person gave would naturally not be ordinary. I'll give you whatever you want. For example, a legendary divine artifact. Qin Feiyang said, The three beasts' eyes trembled, and their breathing became rapid. A legendary divine artifact. This was simply a huge temptation. Okay, we will definitely do our best. That's right, we'll turn this area upside down for you. The three beasts hurriedly roared, their blood gushing out. For a legendary divine artifact, it was worth it to risk their lives. Then I'll wait for your good news. At the same time, I have to take care of Cloud Mountain Village, Qin Feiyong said. No problem. Let's go to Li Yuntai now and ask him for an image crystal. As long as we have the image crystal, we can rush back as soon as we receive news that Cloud Mountain Village is in trouble. Sen Shou said. All right, make your own arrangements. Qin Feiyong smiled and drank the last mouthful of tea. He stood up, put away the tea set, and disappeared from the attic. Brothers, we must cherish this opportunity. One of the black leopards looked at the other two black leopards and said excitedly, Yes, for the legendary artifact, do your best. The other two black panthers roared. Then they went to ask Li Yuntai for the image crystal. At the same time, south of Cloud Mountain Village, deep in the mountains, in the night, a black-clothed man was panting as he sat on the mountain peak. His forehead was covered in sweat. This person was Fu Wintai. I didn't expect that the three beasts of Seven Birds Mountain would be subdued by him. I didn't expect that bastard to be in Cloud Mountain Village all this time. Fu Wintai was very angry. The person who made him angry was naturally Qin Feiyong. Fortunately, he ran away quickly. Otherwise, he would have died in Cloud Mountain Village like the three from Sky Feather Village. No, I can't let this go. Fu Wintai lowered his head and pondered. A moment later, his eyes flashed coldly. He stood up and looked in the direction of Cloud Mountain Village. He sneered. You think you'll be fine with the three beasts protecting you? Just wait, the best part is yet to come. Then he opened a legendary altar and left. Early morning. The sun rose from the east and a new day had arrived. Li Dashin and his wife finally returned with a dozen or so divine lords. Just like the last time they went to Black Mountain Village, everyone was murderous. How is it? The villagers had been waiting for them. When they saw them return, they immediately went up to them. The leader was Li Yuntai. His body was rebuilt, and he didn't need to cultivate in seclusion anymore. Plus, he was worried, so he didn't leave. It's all done. Don't leave anyone from Sky Feather Village. We brought back all the treasures, spirit veins, and crystal veins. Li Dashin smiled. You've worked hard. Li Yuntai patted Li Dashin's shoulder and looked at the others. You've worked hard too. For the village, it's nothing. Brother Yuntai, do you know? The Heavenly Feather Village actually has a rank 1 divine grade soul vein and a rank 1 divine grade crystal vein. The dozen or so divine lords were excited. That's great. Cloud Mountain Village will definitely become stronger. Li Yuntai laughed. Everyone go and rest. Madam, you go back and rest too. Yuntai and I will go and count the results of this battle. Li Dashin looked at the black-clothed woman and the divine lords and smiled. Okay, then we'll go back first. The dozen or so divine lords responded and left with smiles on their faces. The black-clothed woman glanced at Li Yuntai and sent a voice transmission. Dashin, are you going to make a move now? Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. Li Dashin thought. That's good. Li Yuntai has Gao Xiaosan's support and his body has been reconstructed. Bear with it if you can. The black-clothed woman secretly reminded Li Yuntai. She nodded at Li Yuntai and flew to the attic halfway up the mountain. Everyone, let's go. Li Yuntai looked at the villagers. The villagers left in 2s and 3s. Soon, only Li Yuntai, Li Dashin, and Li Yuan were left. Li Yuan stood beside Li Yuntai with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. Li Yuan, don't do it! Li Dashin noticed Li Yuan's expression and hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Li Yuan thought, "This is a good opportunity. I can kill him as long as I reach out my hand. If we kill him, will Gao Shaosan let us go? Let's not talk about Gao Shaosan first. Those 3 Black Panthers are enough to cut us into pieces." Li Dashin said angrily. Li Yuan was shocked. That's right. With Gao Shaosan helping Li Yuntai, it would be difficult to make a move. Li Yuntai didn't notice this at all. He looked at Li Dashin and sighed. "Dashin, I'm sorry about what happened. What do you mean?" Li Dashin was stunned and looked at him suspiciously. He actually apologized to him? That was unprecedented. These days, when I was reshaping my body, I seriously thought about it. In fact, sometimes I need to be more ruthless. Li Yuntai said. So that's why. Li Dashin suddenly understood. But he sneered in his heart. Wasn't it too late to realize it now? Li Yuntai said with a smile, "Let bygones be bygones. In the future, we will work together to protect the village. Not only to protect the village, but also to make the village stronger." Li Dashin smiled. "That's right." Li Yuntai nodded and said with a smile, "I thought you wouldn't reconcile with me so easily." "What words?" "No matter what, we are from the same village," Li Dashin said with a smile. Li Yuntai smiled with relief and turned to Li Yuan. "You have to be nicer to Dashin in the future. Got it?" Li Yuan nodded. But Li Yuntai didn't know that the 2 of them were in cahoots and even wanted to kill him. "Let's go and count the trophies." Li Yuntai smiled and pulled the 2 of them to fly to the attic. Li Dashin was also beaming with joy, but he was secretly transmitting his voice to Li Yuan. "Li Yuan, have you asked Li Yuntai how he managed to reconstruct his body in just a few days?" "Yes, but he didn't say anything. But I noticed that he glanced at Gao Xiaosan's residence." Li Yuan said to himself. Gao Xiaosan, Li Dashin's eyes flashed, and he transmitted a message. It seems that Li Yuan's reshaping of his body and the 3 black leopards' reshaping of their bodies have something to do with Gao Xiaosan. Who on earth is this man? He actually reshaped their bodies in a few days. Li Dashin and Li Yuan were both secretly pondering. After washing the Black Mountain village and the Heavenly Feather village with blood and obtaining all the treasures of the 2 villages, the whole village was jubilant. In the evening, the village even held a celebratory feast. After 3 rounds of drinking, Li Dashin glanced at the dark hillside, then looked at Li Yuntai sitting next to him and said, "Yuntai, it's actually Gao Xiaosan's credit that we were able to defeat the Black Mountain village and the Heavenly Feather village. Why don't we invite him down for a few drinks?" "Yes. We can't forget his great contribution." Li Yuan patted his head and said. The black-clothed woman also smiled and said, "Brother Yuntai, you should go and invite him in person." Li Yuntai shook his head with a wry smile and said, "It has nothing to do with my face. You don't know his character." "Why?" The 3 of them looked at him suspiciously. "He's very antisocial. He doesn't like to be disturbed, and he doesn't like the noisy atmosphere we have now. So we'd better not disturb him, lest he gets angry and leaves. Then our Cloud Mountain village will have no one to rely on in the future." Li Yuntai said. "I see." Li Dashin couldn't help showing a trace of disappointment. He wasn't pretending to be disappointed. He was really disappointed, because if he wanted to kill Li Yuntai, he had to kill Qin Feiyang first. And if he wanted to kill Qin Feiyang, he definitely couldn't do it openly. He had to sneak attack him when he was unprepared. So, he wanted to take this opportunity to call Qin Feiyang out. When he was drunk, he would take the opportunity to kill him. But unexpectedly, Li Yuntai didn't cooperate with him. But he didn't dare to force him for fear of exposing his flaws. He changed the topic and said, "Where are the 3 Black Panthers? Why haven't I seen them?" "They went out," Li Yuntai said. "Went out?" Li Dashin and the other 2 looked at each other. "I don't know where they went, either. Not long after you went to the Heavenly Feather village, they came to me and asked for an image crystal. They said to send a message to them if there was anything, and then they left without saying a word. Li Yuntai said, "One is really weirder than the other. All right, forget about them. Come on, let's continue to drink." Li Dashin said with a smile. Li Yuntai was also unprecedentedly happy. The atmosphere was joyous and harmonious. Time passed like this day by day. Since the Heavenly Feather Village was massacred, Cloud Mountain Village became famous. The people in the nearby villages didn't expect that Cloud Mountain Village, which had always been low-key, would be so terrifying. And Cloud Mountain Village returned to its former peace. However, this kind of peaceful days didn't last long. The real disaster of Cloud Mountain Village was coming. Chapter 2364. Falling in Love with You. Translator. 6 days later in the morning. It started to rain. Waves of cool breeze blew over, making people feel cheerful. On the balcony, Li Yuntai was half lying on a chair. Behind him, Li was rubbing his shoulders. There was a pot of tea next to him. The fragrance of tea filled the air. Li Yuntai tasted the tea while enjoying his daughter's massage. He was in a very good mood. Li asked suspiciously, "Father, why haven't I seen you go out these days?" "What am I going out for?" Li Yuntai asked with a smile. "Of course, I'm looking for treasures to exchange for soul stones. You see, the end of the year is getting closer and closer, but we still lack a lot of soul stones." Li said, "Do you want me to die of exhaustion? The war with Black Mountain Village and Heavenly Feather Village has just ended, and you're urging me to go out." Li Yuntai said unhappily. "I didn't mean that," Li said hurriedly. I know. I'm just kidding." Li Yuntai smiled. What a silly daughter. If he really didn't have enough soul stones, how could he be in the mood to sit here and drink tea and chat? You don't know, do you? I have a total of 10 million soul stones on me right now. But he didn't dare to tell Li, because with Li's simple character, she would definitely tell others immediately. "It's drizzling. Looking at the mountain scenery, it's really interesting. This is the first time I find that our Cloud Mountain Village is actually quite good," Li Yuntai said with a smile. Li also looked at Cloud Mountain Village in the rain and said with a smile, "It's so peaceful." "Yes, I really hope that this peace can be maintained forever." Li Yuntai chuckled. Boom! However, at this moment, streaks of terrifying auras descended upon the village. "What?" Li Yuntai suddenly got up and looked up. Li was also taken aback. At the same time, Li Dashin and his wife, Li Feng, Li Yuan, and the villagers all ran out of their houses and looked at the sky. Everyone's eyes were full of surprise. Whoosh! Suddenly, in the sky, figures appeared out of thin air. There were a total of 10 people standing side by side. They were all wearing identical black armor and holding a black spear in their hands. Standing high up in the sky, they were like unsheathed sharp blades, exuding a monstrous sharpness. Their eyes and expressions were incomparably cold. They looked like emotionless killing machines. Blackstone City, City Lord's Mansion Guard. Li Yuntai's eyes were trembling, his face full of fear. These people wearing black armor are the guards of the Blackrock City, Lord's Mansion. Each of them had the cultivation of a great perfection, divine Lord. The black spears in their hands and the black armor on their bodies were all supreme grade, divine artifacts. Li was also flustered and asked, "Why would they come to our Cloud Mountain Village?" "I don't know." Li Yuntai shook his head and said, "Stay here and don't move. I'll go and ask." Whoosh! Without waiting for Li's reply, Li Yuntai soared into the sky. Meanwhile, Li Dashin also rushed into the sky. The two looked at each other from a distance and quickly flew to the front of the group of guards, respectfully saying, "Greetings, lords!" The 10 guards turned a deaf ear to them and kept a straight face, as if they didn't see them. The two looked at each other. What was going on? "Greetings. young city lord and lord commander. Suddenly, the 10 guards knelt down in the void. What? Young city lord? Commander. Li Yuntai and Li Dashin were shocked. Young city lord, as the name suggested, was the son of the city lord of Blackstone City. As for the commander, without a doubt, he must be the commander of the city lord's mansion guard. Such a person, in the eyes of Li Yuntai and Li Dashin, was an unattainable big shot. The two hurriedly knelt down in the void. Whoosh! Immediately, above the group of people, 3 figures appeared. Standing in the middle was a young man in purple, about 20 years old, with his hands behind his back and an arrogant look. That was the most typical attitude of someone who had the most authority in the world. On the left of the young man in purple, there was a black-haired old man. His skinny body looked a little old, but his dark eyes were extremely sharp, as if he could see through people's hearts. On the right of the young man in purple, there was a middle-aged man in black. His eyes were glowing with green light, revealing a gloomy and cold aura. Li Yuntai and Li Dashin knelt down in the void, lowering their heads and not daring to breathe. They didn't even dare to look up. It was obvious how important the city, Lord's mansion, was to them. The black-haired old man glanced at Li Yuntai and Li Dashin, then looked at the villagers below and waved his hand. A golden throne that seemed to be made of gold appeared, floating in the void. The black-haired old man bowed and said, "Young city lord, please take a seat." The young man in purple nodded and sat on the throne, looking down at Li Yuntai and Li Dashin. He said, "Look up at me." Hearing this, the two hurriedly looked up. Fu Wintai. When they looked up at the 3 people, their faces suddenly changed. The black-haired, middle-aged man, standing on the left of the young man in purple, was Fu Wintai, who escaped previously. Why was Fu Wintai with the city, Lord's mansion people? Could it be, suddenly, a terrifying thought crept into their minds. Could it be that Fu Wintai asked the city, Lord's mansion, to destroy Cloud Mountain Village? But it couldn't be. How could Fu Wintai have the ability to do that? Fu Wintai also stared at Li Yuntai and Li Dashin with a cold smile. "I asked you to look at me. Who are you looking at?" the young man in purple shouted. The two shuddered and looked at the young man in purple. The young man in purple grabbed the armrest of the throne lightly and said, "I heard that your village has recently obtained a divine soul vein." The two shuddered and looked at Fu Wintai. There was no doubt that this despicable person must have told the young city lord. Fu Wintai's smile became even colder. "Answer me." The young man in purple said angrily, "Yes. Our village has recently obtained a divine soul vein." Li Yuntai and Li Dashin nodded quickly. The young man in purple suddenly smiled and said, "Don't be so nervous. A divine soul vein can't arouse my interest." Li Yuntai and Li Dashin looked at each other. Li Dashin asked respectfully, "Young city lord, why are you here?" He had planned to betray Qin Feiyang, because the divine soul vein was in Qin Feiyang's hands. Cloud Mountain Village couldn't take the blame, nor could they afford to. He even wondered if he could use these people to get rid of Qin Feiyang. No matter how strong Qin Feiyang was, he was just a junior divine lord. These people, except for the young city lord, were all perfected divine lords. The black-haired old man's aura was even more unfathomable. He must be a paragon god. How could a paragon god fail to kill a junior divine lord? But in the end, they didn't come for the divine soul vein. "I'm only interested in 2 people. The first one is the person hiding in your village. What's his surname? What's his name?" The young man in purple looked at Fu Wintai. Fu Wintai said, "Young city lord, his surname is Gao." Yes, that's him. As for the other person, her name is Li He, the daughter of your village chief." The young man in purple said, "What? He's here for Xiao He." Li Yuntai was stunned. "Young city lord, you've never been to such a small place, so you don't know the people here. Actually, he's the village chief of this village, Li's father, Li Yuntai. Fu Wentai pointed at Li Yuntai and said, So it's you. The young man in purple looked at Li Yuntai and smiled. He waved his hand and said, Go and get them here. Li Yuntai glanced at Fu Wentai and then asked the young man in purple, Young city lord, may I ask why you're looking for my daughter? Young city lord asked you to get them, so go and get them. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Are you disobeying the young city lord's order? Fu Wentai shouted. Li Yuntai said angrily, Fu Wentai, you're just a stray dog. Who gave you the right to speak? A murderous intent flashed in Fu Wentai's eyes. He turned to the young man in purple and said with grievance, Young city lord, look. I spoke for you, but he insulted me. The young man in purple's face suddenly darkened. He said, Li Yuntai, you should know your place. Do whatever I ask you to do. Yes. Li Yuntai responded respectfully. He turned to look at the mountainside and shouted, Brother Gao, Xiaohe, the young city lord wants to see you. Come here quickly. He was praying in his heart. Please don't let anything happen. Not to mention Li He. She was the apple of his eye. Li He also listened to his every word. She would definitely come as soon as she heard. But Qin Feiyang was different. This person was eccentric. He might not obey and come to see the young city lord. If Qin Feiyang didn't come out and annoyed the young city lord, his Yunshan village would be finished. Whoosh! Sure enough, in less than 5 breaths, Li He flew over and stood beside Li Yuntai and Li Dashan. Li Yuntai whispered, Greet the young city lord. Greetings, young city lord. Li He bowed her head and said respectfully, Raise your head. The young man in purple said. Li He raised her head and looked at the young city lord. Her face was faintly pale. Although she hadn't been out of the village, she had heard about the strength of the city lord of Blackstone City. This was a behemoth that their Yunshan village couldn't afford to offend. The purple-clothed young man sized up Li He, and a smile gradually crept onto his face. Fu Wentai laughed. Young city lord, I didn't lie to you. His smile was extremely wretched. Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect that there would be such a beautiful woman in this remote village. I like her. The young man in purple laughed. Hearing this, Li Yuntai's heart sank to the bottom. As long as one wasn't a fool, one could guess what the young man in purple wanted to do. Young city lord, she is not only beautiful, but also very innocent, like a piece of white paper. Such a woman, as long as you train her a little, will definitely become an obedient female slave. Fu Wentai laughed sinisterly. Really? The young man in purple looked at Li He in surprise. Would I dare to lie to you? My village is not far away, so I know the people of Yunshan village like the back of my hand. Fu Wentai laughed. Good, good, good. The young man in purple was overjoyed. He turned to the black-haired old man next to him and said, Let Fu Wentai stay in the city, Lord's mansion, as a guard. Chapter 23:65 Falling in Love with You. Translator. Yes, young city lord. The black-haired old man replied respectfully. Thank you, young city lord. Thank you, commander. This lowly one will definitely do my best for the young city lord, for the commander, until my death. Fu Wentai immediately knelt in front of the two and said gratefully, Get up. The young city lord waved his hand. Fu Wentai got up and looked down at Li Yuntai and his daughter, gloating. Father, what did they just say? Female slave. Li He was very flustered. No, you heard wrong. Li Yuntai quickly waved his hand and comforted Li He. But in his heart there was a monstrous anger. He could hurt anyone, but he could not hurt his daughter. Li Yuntai, it's your blessing that the young city lord likes your daughter. It's the glory of your entire Yunshan village. Why don't you thank him? Fu Wentai looked at Li Yuntai arrogantly and said, With the young city lord as his backer, he was not afraid at all. What He Bao? What Li Yuntai? What Gao San? I'll kill whoever comes. Thank him, Li Yuntai murmured. Fu Wintai's words undoubtedly ignited the anger in his heart. Fu Wintai, are you still a human? You don't deserve to be a human. I'll kill you. All of a sudden, Li Yuntai roared and rushed towards Fu Wintai like a wild beast. Li Dashin saw that the situation was not good. He quickly grabbed Li Yuntai and growled, Yuntai, calm down! Li Yuntai roared, How can I calm down when you don't even let Xiaohe go? Even so, you have to bear with it, Li Dashin secretly shouted. Li Yuntai stared fixedly at Fu Wintai, his eyes bloodshot. He was about to lose his mind. If Fu Wintai came to deal with him, it didn't matter. Even if he killed him and chopped him into pieces, it didn't matter. But he actually used such a vicious trick to hurt his daughter? How could he bear it? As long as he had a little courage. As long as he was a father, he couldn't bear it. Yuntai, I can understand how you feel. But you have to understand us. Do you know what the consequences will be if you anger the young city, Lord Now? These guards are enough to raise our Cloud Mountain village to the ground. Li Dashin thought to himself. Li Yuntai replied through telepathy, I know, but I won't agree to harm my daughter. All right. Don't be rash. Let me say a few words. After Li Dashin finished speaking, he looked up at the young city lord and smiled obsequiously. Young city lord, my name is Li Dashin. Some time ago, I went to see your father. Li Yuntai immediately looked at Li Dashin. The purple-clothed youth was also slightly taken aback as he lowered his head to size up Li Dashin. The black-haired old man also looked at Li Dashin in surprise. Simultaneously, the villagers were also dumbfounded. Li Dashin had actually met the Blackstone City's city lord. How come they didn't know about this? Wait a minute. Could it have been a few days ago? A few days ago, Li Dashin and his wife went to Blackrock City to see the city lord? But Li Dashin was just a small fry. How could the high and mighty city lord meet him? I'm just a nobody. It's normal that you don't know about it. But I think you must have heard about the Nirvana Divine Tree in your residence these few days. Li Dashin smiled. The Nirvana Divine Tree? The young city lord frowned. The black-haired old man's eyes flashed as he said, Young city lord, there's indeed a Nirvana Divine Tree in the city lord's residence, recently. How come I don't know about it? The young city lord was taken aback as he asked. The black-haired old man smiled bitterly. You're out having fun every day. Why would you care about this? From what you're saying that I'm a playboy. The young city lord said unhappily. No. Young city lord, please don't misunderstand. The black-haired old man hurriedly said. The young city lord waved his hand and said impatiently, All right, tell me about the Nirvana Divine Tree. A few days ago, I went to the city lord and happened to see him fiddling with a Nirvana Divine Tree. At that time, I was curious and asked the city lord. The city lord said that a couple suddenly ran to him and offered him this Nirvana Divine Tree. The city lord also said that the couple were fools and didn't understand the value of the Nirvana Divine Tree at all, because the city lord only used 500 billion divine crystals to get rid of them. The black-haired old man laughed in a hoarse voice. He didn't care about the couple's reputation at all and called them fools in public. 500 billion? And its divine crystals. Ha! The young city lord was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter and mocked without restraint. They're really fools. Li Dashin's hands, which were hidden in his sleeves, clenched tightly. The black-robed woman below wasn't any better. This was simply humiliating them. Li Dashin and his wife actually got a Nirvana Divine Tree. And they even secretly sent it to Black Rock City? This is too much. They actually hid it from us. 500 billion divine crystals. We didn't even see a single one. The villagers were also in an uproar. The couple actually took the 500 billion divine crystals for themselves. How greedy! What are you shouting about? Is this the time to talk about this? The black-robed woman couldn't bear it any more and scolded. The villagers shuddered. Yes, now was not the time to care about this. Everyone looked up at the sky again, their eyes full of worry. What a bunch of fools! The black-robed woman secretly snorted. She looked up at Li Dashin and couldn't help but frown. Why did he have to bring this up? Wasn't he asking for trouble? The young city lord looked down at Li Dashin, whose face was green and red. He laughed and said, "Thank you for the Nirvana divine tree. Tell me, what do you want to say?" Li Dashin suppressed his anger and said with a flattering smile, "Young city lord, can you please let Li go for my sake?" "Ha ha!" The young city lord immediately laughed again. Fu Wintai looked at the young city lord and laughed. The black-haired old man and the 10 guards also had a trace of sarcasm in their eyes. Didn't he know who he was? Face, he really dared to say that. He still knows to help Xiaohe. At least he has some conscience. Someone in the village whispered. However, the black-robed woman looked at Li Dashin with anger. Was there something wrong with his brain? Why did he go to help Li Yuntai and Li He? What was he thinking? Didn't he always want to get rid of Li Yuntai? Wasn't this a good opportunity? Why did he help them? He even exposed the Nirvana divine tree and made himself the target of public criticism. She had never seen such a foolish person. The black-robed woman was very angry, but in fact Li Dashin also felt wronged. He just wanted to pretend to help and intercede. After all, they were from the same village. He had to pretend. That was why he was so vague when he first spoke. He only mentioned the Nirvana divine tree. He didn't directly say that the Nirvana divine tree was given by him. He thought that the young city lord and the black-haired old man would understand. He didn't expect the black-haired old man to say it in public. He also regretted it. Why did he mention the Nirvana divine tree for no reason? In fact, he also had the intention of pleasing the young city lord, because he felt that mentioning the Nirvana divine tree would make it easier to gain the favor of the young city lord. However, he didn't expect to be severely humiliated. I'm dying of laughter. I'm crying. I've never seen anyone more foolish than him in my entire life. Zhang Xian sighed deeply. Ha! The young city lord was laughing so hard that he was rocking back and forth. He was extremely happy. Li Dashin's face became more and more ugly. After a while, only then did the young city lord stop laughing. He rubbed his face, which was almost distorted from laughing, and lowered his head to look at Li Dashin. He said, "I would like to ask you, did you give this Nirvana divine tree to my city lord mansion?" Li Dashin shook his head. The purple-robed young man said again, "Did my father give you money?" Li Dashin nodded. "Isn't that right? You didn't give it to us. It's a very fair deal. Why should I give you face?" The purple-robed young man said contemptuously. Li Dashin suppressed the anger in his heart and said with a smile, "In that case, pretend that I didn't say anything." "Get lost!" The purple-robed young man shouted. "What the hell? Why should I give you face?" Li Dashin shuddered and hurriedly retreated to Li Yuntai's side. He secretly sighed and said, "Yuntai, I've tried my best. As for the Nirvana divine tree, I'm also very sorry." Li Yuntai shook his head. It didn't matter anymore. He just wanted to help his daughter escape from the clutches of these scumbags in front of him. Fu Wintai shouted, "Li Yuntai, why don't you send your daughter to the young city lord?" "Father, I don't want to." Li hid behind Li Yuntai and shook her head. Her face was pale. "Don't worry. I won't give you to them even if I die." Li Yuntai comforted her softly. Fu Wintai said in a low voice, "Li Yuntai, don't test the young city lord's patience." But he was sneering in his heart. "Resist. Resist as much as you want. It was precisely because you resisted that the young city lord wanted to kill you. Otherwise, how could he kill you? The young city lord looked at Li Yuntai and shook his head. He sighed and said, "It seems that I'm not imposing enough." "That's easy." The black-haired old man smiled and stepped out. He instantly landed in front of Li Yuntai. "Get lost." Li Yuntai was furious. He raised his fist and punched at the black-haired old man. "You!" And the black-haired old man shook his head. He raised his big old hand, grabbed Li Yuntai's fist, and clenched it gently. Crack! Li Yuntai's fist was crushed and blood flowed out. Then, the black-haired old man slapped Li Yuntai's lower abdomen casually. Ah! With a scream, Li Yuntai immediately flew down to the village below like a meteorite. There was a palm-sized bloody hole in his lower abdomen. Blood dyed the sky red. "Father!" Li cried and rushed toward Li Yuntai. But at this moment, the black-haired old man grabbed Li's arm and jumped. He landed in front of the young city lord and said with a smile, "Young city lord, you've established your prestige." "Haha," the young city lord laughed. He got up and hugged Li. He put his nose on Li's neck and took a deep breath. He looked intoxicated, so fragrant. Chapter 2366. Falling in Love with You. Translator. "Let me go! Father, save me!" Li had never encountered such a thing. She screamed and struggled while calling for help from Li Yuntai. But the young city lord was a perfected god of war. How could she, a false god, escape from him? However, Li's resistance made him a little unhappy. "Young city lord, don't you think this will make you feel more conquered? A sense of accomplishment?" Fu Wintai rolled his eyes and chuckled. He was afraid that Li's resistance would anger the young city lord and he would vent his anger on him. Because Li was introduced to him, the young city lord was stunned. It seemed to be true. In the past, those women were all obedient to him and he had almost lost interest. Now that such an unyielding woman had suddenly appeared, his interest was piqued. "Little beauty, don't worry. When we return to the city lord mansion, I will slowly tame you. I promise I will make you obedient by then." The young city lord laughed. Then he looked at Li Yuntai. Seeing that he was about to smash into the ground, a few phenomenal divine lords in the village rushed over and caught him. "Daughter, let him go. Daughter, don't be afraid. I will save you right away." However, he only had Li in his eyes at this moment. He immediately released his divine perception, supported his body, and rushed up. "Brother Yuntai, calm down. You will be killed by them. We all know you are sad, and we don't want Xiaohe to be taken away by them. But what can we do? This is our life." The few great success god lords held onto him tightly as they wailed and cried. The other villagers couldn't help but tear up when they saw the scene. Facing the powerful city lord mansion, what else could they do except endure? This was the divine land. Weak and lowly people had no right to resist. "No, we must save Xiaohe." Suddenly, a roar was heard. A young man flew up into the sky, crazily. It was Li Feng. At this moment, his eyes were also red. "Xiao Feng, don't go!" Someone immediately shouted. But Li Feng turned a deaf ear to it. He stared fixedly at Li He and muttered, "Little He, don't worry. I will definitely not let anything happen to you." A beginner divine warrior dares to jump out? The young city lord raised his eyebrows and looked at the black-haired old man. "My prestige is still not enough." Killing intent surged in the black-haired old man's eyes as he took a step forward and grabbed Li Feng's neck with one hand and Li Feng's left hand with the other. Following closely, the black-haired old man exerted strength, and Li Feng's left hand was actually forcefully torn off. Ah, Li Feng couldn't help but howl in pain. Large beads of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. "Don't kill him! He's just an immature child," the villagers below cried out in grief. However, the black-haired old man was expressionless. He grabbed Li Feng's right hand and tore it apart. How can they be so cruel? You might as well kill him. I beg you. The old men knelt on the ground and begged. Rather than suffer like this, it would be better to die. If we kill him like this, how can we establish prestige for the young city lord? The black-haired old man said coldly as he grabbed Li Feng's ankle again. His two thighs were also forcefully torn off. Li Feng fainted on the spot, his face as pale as paper. The moment the black-haired old man let go, Li Feng immediately fell down. He scanned the villagers and coldly snorted. Let's see which one of you still dares to disobey the young city lord. Such a bloody method caused the villagers below to keep quiet out of fear. Their faces ashen. A great success, divine Lord caught Li Feng. Looking at the bloodied body, his eyes were filled with grief. It was all because of the incompetence of these elders that these juniors had to suffer so much. Fortunately, Li Feng didn't die and only fainted. However, this time, what the black-haired old man did to him would definitely leave a shadow in his young heart. Poor child, why are you so stupid? The people of the city lord's mansion are not people that you, a mere beginner divine warrior, can offend? Isn't this courting death? Big brother Yuntai, what should we do? Could it be that little Feng is going to suffer for nothing? Could it be that we are just going to watch them take little he away? Big brother Yuntai, I can't accept this. What right do they have to treat us like this? We are also humans. Many people knelt on the ground and cried out in despair. Looking at the helpless faces, Li Yuntai felt as though a knife was being twisted in his heart. I'll kneel down and kowtow to you. I beg you, let my daughter go. Kneeling on the ground, he cried out helplessly as he slammed his head against the ground. In just a few hits, his head was bleeding. He had no choice. He could only use this method, hoping to gain the sympathy of the other party and let Cloud Mountain Village go. It's indeed different when you establish your prestige. No one is resisting. They are all begging for mercy. The young city lord hugged Li tightly as he looked at Li Yuntai and chuckled. His face was full of pride. Of course. After all, humans are afraid of death. The black-haired old man laughed. Fu Wintai frowned and bowed. Young city lord, this Li Yuntai is not a good person. Not only is he vengeful, but he is also very crazy. If you let him go today out of kindness, he will not be grateful. Instead, he will find ways to kill you, or even self-destruct to die with you. No matter what, he must kill Li Yuntai today. Self-destruct. The young city lord was shocked and said in a deep voice, So we can't let him live. Of course we can't. Not only can we not let him live, but also the people in this village. We must eliminate the source of trouble. Fu Wintai said. Li Dashin trembled and shouted, Fu Wintai, you are too ruthless. I'm ruthless? Compared to you, what am I? Young city lord, to tell you the truth, some time ago they massacred Black Mountain Village and Heavenly Feather Village because of a small matter. What do you think? Such fanatics like them will be a disaster if we let them live. Fu Wintai looked at the purple-clothed young man and said, Murderous intent flashed in the purple-clothed young man's eyes, and he shouted, Don't let anyone live. Kill them all. The 10 black-armored guards immediately waved the long spears in their hands and walked toward the village, step by step. What? Li Dashin's body shook. The villagers below were also in despair. Young city lord, and that guy surnamed Gao. I saw with my own eyes that he used a legendary level divine technique on the 7 Birds Mountain. Fu Wintai said again, Sigh, but at this moment, a sigh was heard. Although the voice was not loud and could even be said to be very weak, it was clearly heard by everyone. Gao Shaosan, Brother Gao, Brother Gao. Everyone in Cloud Mountain Village, including Li Yuntai and Li He, looked at the mountainside in an instant. Their eyes were burning with a strong hope. Although this person was only a low-level divine lord, as long as he was willing to help, there might be hope. The young city lord, the black-haired old man, and the 10 black-armored guards followed everyone's gaze, and their eyes flashed with a cold green light. How can a clown survive until now? Li Yuntai, tell me, what the hell are you doing? And you, Li Dashin, weren't you very powerful when you and your wife fought for the Nirvana Divine Tree? How come you're not angry in front of someone from the city, Lord Mansion? A calm voice came from halfway up the mountain. I'm useless. I've disappointed Brother Gao. Li Yuntai sighed, but at the same time, Li Dashin and his wife were very surprised. How did this person know about the fight for the Nirvana Divine Tree? The young city lord, the black-haired old man, and the black-armored guards were also a little confused. A mere city, Lord Mansion? How disdainful was this person? The young city lord came back to his senses and looked at the mountainside with a cold light in his eyes. How arrogant! I'd like to see who you are. I'm not a god or a saint. I'm just an ordinary person. However, although I'm an ordinary person, at least I have humanity. I won't abuse others like this. The calm voice came again. Then, a young man in black stepped into the air and entered everyone's sight. It's him. Li Dashin and his wife's eyes widened. How could it be him? Yes, as Fire Lotus had said, this was not a surprise for Li Dashin and his wife. It was a complete shock. What the hell? The young city lord stared at Qin Feiyang in shock. The black-haired old man and the 10 guards were the same. Did they see wrongly? He was just a minor divine lord. A mere minor divine lord dared to be so arrogant? Who gave him the courage? Were the people of Cloud Mountain Village scared out of their wits? How could they pin their hopes on a minor divine lord? Commander, are we seeing things? The 10 guards looked at the black-haired old man and asked in a daze. The black-haired old man's mouth twitched. Not to mention the 10 guards, even he was confused. He had never thought that the other party was just a minor divine lord. Brother Gao, please save Brother Xiaofeng. Li shouted. The first person she thought of was not herself, but Li Feng. This showed how important Li Feng was to her. Qin Feiyang glanced at Li He from a distance, and then lowered his head to scan the people in the village. Soon he found Li Feng in the crowd. His limbs were gone, and blood kept flowing. Although he had fainted, his face was full of pain. Qin Feiyang took a step forward, took out a divine life pill, and stuffed it into Li Feng's mouth. This divine life pill had 8 elixir patterns. The black-haired old man saw the 8 elixir patterns clearly, and his pupils shrank. He could take out a divine life pill with 8 elixir patterns? And he was so fearless. Could this person be a disciple of a wealthy family? Li Yuntai rolled and crawled to Qin Feiyang's side. He grabbed Qin Feiyang's hand and said, Brother Gao, I really don't want to disturb your cultivation, but there's really no other way this time. Please help save Xiao He. Qin Feiyang patted the back of Li Yuntai's blood-stained hand and gently pushed Li Yuntai away. He lowered his head and continued to look at Li Feng. No one dared to disturb him. Qin Feiyang did not look at the young city lord and his men again. It was as if they were invisible. Chapter 2367. I'm in love with you. Translator. The divine life pill with 8 veins contained a huge amount of energy. Soon, Li Feng's lost limbs began to reconstruct. How dare you ignore me? You're too arrogant. Kill him for me. The purple-robed young man's eyes were gloomy. The 10 black-armored guards who were about to attack the villagers immediately brandished their spears and charged toward Qin Feiyang. Brother Gao, be careful. Li Yuntai's expression changed. Qin Feiyang looked up at the purple-robed young man and said calmly, You'd better make them stop immediately. Haha, you're still so arrogant. Who do you think you are? An ultimate god? Nine Heavens realm. You're just a lesser divine lord. Why are you acting like a boss in front of me?" The purple-robed young man laughed, his face full of contempt. "Didn't your father teach you to keep a low profile and not underestimate anyone?" Qin Feiyong stepped out, and his aura exploded as he charged toward the 10 black-armored guards. He's going to attack them just like that? How confident is he? Li Yuan, who was standing next to Li Yuntai, was in disbelief. Li Dashin and his wife were the same. No matter how powerful he was, he shouldn't be so arrogant. After all, they were all perfected divine lords, and each of them had a supreme-grade spear and armor. How dare he? He doesn't respect the city governor's mansion at all. Chop him into pieces and feed him to the dogs. The purple-robed young man was furious. A lesser divine lord who was like an ant dared to fight back? Wasn't this a challenge to his authority? As the young city governor of the Black Rock City, he was like the moon surrounded by stars, and countless people tried to curry favor with him. This was the first time he met such an impudent person. Clang! The 10 black-armored guards were filled with killing intent. The spears in their hands were revived, and their sharp edges could destroy the world. Qin Feiyong remained calm. He stepped in front of one of the guards, raised his arm, and grabbed the spear with his bare hands. Immediately, the spear's edge tore the flesh in Qin Feiyong's palm, causing blood to splatter. What? The black-armored guards' eyes were stunned. The others were also dumbfounded. He actually caught a supreme-grade divine artifact with his bare hands? Although he was injured because of this, it was already inconceivable. If it were anyone else, their arms would have been shattered by the spear. After all, it was a supreme-grade divine artifact. How could his fleshly body be a match for him? However, this person's flesh was only lacerated. Was this guy's body made of iron? Qin Feiyong's expression was calm. He quickly raised his other hand and punched towards the black-armored guard's lower abdomen. Immediately, the guard was sent flying, but he wasn't injured. After all, he had the cultivation of a perfected divine lord. The black armor on his body was also a supreme-grade defensive artifact. However, even though it was a supreme-grade divine artifact, the black armor still cracked under Qin Feiyong's punch. This scene shocked everyone. A mere small success divine lord could actually cause damage to a supreme-grade divine artifact with the power of a single punch? Even if it was only a very small crack, it was still shocking enough. Because if that Imperial bodyguard wasn't wearing his black armor, then this punch would have been enough to injure him. How could a human's fleshly body be so strong to such an extent? However, as the person involved, Qin Feiyong was very dissatisfied. The current strength of his fleshly body was still a long way from being able to contend with a supreme-grade divine artifact. No wonder you're so confident. It turns out that you have some ability. However, if you think that you can defeat them with your fleshly body, then you're underestimating the guards of my city, Lord Mansion. Let him see your strength. The purple-clothed youth looked at the 10 Imperial bodyguards and said with a smile, "Clang!" The 10 of them spread out. Their spears flickered with cold light. Like poisonous snakes, they attacked Qin Feiyong from all directions. "You're courting death." Qin Feiyong snorted coldly. Accompanied by a loud clang, the Azure Phoenix sword appeared out of thin air. Accompanied by the clanging sounds, the 10 spears broke on the spot. What? The 10 Imperial bodyguards looked at the remaining half of the sword in their hands. Their eyes filled with disbelief. A supreme-grade divine artifact was cut like vegetables. Suddenly, the 10 of them raised their heads and stared at the Azure Phoenix sword in Qin Feiyong's hand. What level of divine artifact was this? Peak level? Legendary level? Li Yuntai, Li Dashin, Li Yuan, Fu Wintai, the purple-clothed youth, the black-haired old man, and the villagers were extremely shocked. Especially Li Yuntai and Li Yuan. After being together for so long, they didn't know that this person had such a terrifying divine artifact. The whole place was dead silent. Everyone's face was full of awe and fear. Legendary, level divine artifact. Suddenly, a hoarse voice sounded, breaking the silence. In an instant, everyone looked at the black-haired old man, because it was him who spoke. Legendary level divine artifact, Li Yuntai murmured, feeling like he was dreaming. It turned out that this person not only had terrifying means, but also had a legendary level divine artifact. Li Dashin and his wife were also afraid. Of course, they were afraid that Qin Feiyong would come to settle accounts with them, not to mention the other party's strength. Just this legendary level divine artifact was enough to kill them. The most important thing was, they knew how terrifying Qin Feiyong's potential and comprehension were. Back then, when fighting with the Golden Falcon, he had evolved several divine arts in a row. This kind of talent was unheard of. No, they had to get rid of this person. Otherwise, they would be the ones to die later. The couple looked at each other across the air, with a trace of murderous intent in their eyes. At the same time, it was too late to regret. Why were they so confident that the other party would definitely die? If they had confirmed it at that time, would they be facing such a crisis now? More importantly, if they had confirmed it at that time, not only could they have killed this person completely, but they could also have gotten this legendary level divine artifact. Regret. It was also at this time. Li Feng's hands and legs finally grew back. He also slowly opened his eyes, weakly glancing at the sky. But when he saw Qin Feiyong, he suddenly became spirited and shouted, "Brother Gao, save Xiaohe, save everyone." His voice was very soft. However, Qin Feiyong heard it clearly. Qin Feiyong looked down at Li Feng and asked, "Does it hurt?" Li Feng stood up with the help of the two old men and nodded to Qin Feiyong. It was more than just pain. At that moment, he could clearly feel death descending upon him. At that moment, he felt that he was so insignificant that he couldn't even compare to an ant. Qin Feiyong looked up at Li He, who was still held by the purple-clothed young man, and asked, "Do you feel despair?" Li He nodded. She grew up under the care of Li Yuntai and had never suffered any grievances. She thought that the world was beautiful. However, everything that had happened today had enlightened her, and she had come to a sudden realization. She was too naive before. "Actually, I have already come out, but do you know why I haven't done anything?" Qin Feiyong looked at the two and said. The two shook their heads. Li Yuntai and the others also looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Qin Feiyong said lightly, "Only when you have tasted despair and pain can you understand how cruel the world is and how vicious people are." "I see." Li Yuntai was suddenly enlightened and couldn't help but feel grateful. He was helping to teach Li Feng and Li He. "Thank you, Brother Gao." Li Feng bowed and said. Qin Feiyong glanced at the 10 black-armored guards, looked up at the black-haired old man and the purple-clothed young man, and asked, "Did you come here directly through the transmission altar?" The purple-clothed young man was stunned. "Did you or not?" Qin Feiyong asked again. "Yes, a what?" The purple-clothed young man was annoyed. He was a little puzzled. Why did he ask this? Qin Feiyong said, "That is to say, no one saw you come to Cloud Mountain Village on the way." "What are you trying to say?" The purple-clothed young man frowned. "Does the City Lord Mansion, like your father, know that you came to Cloud Mountain Village?" Qin Feiyong asked again. "Do I have to answer just because you asked me to?" The purple-clothed young man shouted. Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile, "Don't tell me you don't even dare to answer this." The purple-clothed young man's eyes were hazy. The black-haired old man looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Why did he ask such unimportant questions? Qin Feiyong looked at the purple-clothed young man and asked again, "How many people in the City Lord Mansion know that you came to Cloud Mountain Village?" "My father," and my father's guards. If I tell you, what do you want? The purple-clothed young man looked at Qin Feiyong with a cold smile and said, I see. Then, as long as I kill you, your father, and his guards, no one in the Black Rock City will know that you came to Cloud Mountain Village. And no one will know that you died in Cloud Mountain Village. This way, Cloud Mountain Village will not be in danger anymore. Qin Feiyong laughed and said, What? Kill us? And kill my father? The purple-clothed young man looked at Qin Feiyong with a stunned face. Is this guy stupid? Does he think he can do anything just because he has a legendary artifact? Ha ha! What a frog at the bottom of a well. What a joke! The purple-clothed young man glanced at the black-haired old man and said with a cold smile, I want him alive! Understood. The black-haired old man nodded and took a step forward. The aura of a half-step transcendent god rolled out. He is indeed a transcendent god. The villagers' eyes trembled and their faces turned pale. A transcendent god, even a half-step transcendent god, was not someone that Qin Feiyong could fight against. This was because a transcendent god had crossed the threshold of a divine lord. No one could break through the barrier of a major realm. Kid, there is a limit to your arrogance. You should see who is standing in front of you. Even if you have a legendary artifact, even if your physical body is stronger than ordinary people, you are just an ant in front of me. Die. The black-haired old man waved his hand, and a surge of divine power rushed toward Qin Feiyong like a waterfall. Seeing this, the 10 black-armored bodyguards immediately retreated. As they looked at Qin Feiyong, their eyes were filled with ridicule. To a divine lord, the high and mighty paramount god was an existence akin to a heavenly god. As long as a transcendent god attacked, even a peak divine lord would be crushed like an ant. Li Yuntai and the villagers' hearts were in their throats. Qin Feiyong was their last hope, their last straw of hope. If even Qin Feiyong could not defeat the black-haired old man, then the end of Cloud Mountain Village would come. However, could a lesser divine lord really defeat a half-step transcendent god? They could not help but wonder, but they could not lose. Heavens, there must be a miracle. They prayed in their hearts. Chapter 2368. I'm in love with you. Translator. Li Dashin looked at Qin Feiyong and the black-haired old man from afar. His eyes shone with an inexplicable light. What are you thinking? The woman in black asked. In the past, I couldn't wait for this Gao guy to die. But now, I hope that both of them will suffer great losses. Li Dashin sneered secretly. Why? The woman in black asked. Because no matter which side wins, it won't be good for us. Let's talk about the young city lord first. If the young city lord wins, he will definitely order the massacre of Yunshan village. At that time, we won't be able to escape death. This Gao Shaosan seems to be a ruthless person. We snatched his nirvana divine tree back then. He will definitely not let it go. The most important thing is, if Gao Shaosan wins, we won't dare to touch Li Yuntai in the future. So it will only be good for us if both of them suffer great losses. I even have a crazy idea. After both of them suffer great losses, I will kill them all. Li Dashin sneered. What? The woman in black was shocked. This was too crazy. As long as they are all dead, not only can we solve the crisis, but we can also get the legendary artifacts, soul stones, and a lot of treasures in Gao Shaosan's hands. Li Dashin said secretly, Don't be impulsive. Even if they all die here, there is still the City Lord Mansion. If the City Lord Mansion investigates, how are we going to explain it? The woman in black asked. Don't worry about this. If the City Lord Mansion comes to investigate, we can push the blame of the young City Lord's death to Gao Shaosan. Tell the City Lord Mansion that Gao Shaosan has fled. Won't we be fine then? Li Dashin said, What about these villagers? They are all watching now. If you really do this, how are you going to shut their mouths? The woman said secretly, This is simpler. They won't dare to tell the truth. Because once they tell the truth, will the City Lord Mansion let them go? Li Dashin sneered. The black-robed woman was stunned for a moment before she replied, "That seems to be the case." "So, as long as both sides are injured, our plan will succeed. If these villagers really don't cooperate with us, we'll just take the treasure and leave after killing Gao Shaosan and the others. The Divine Land is so big. How can the City Lord's Mansion of the Black Rock City find us?" Li Dashin sneered. "That makes sense. Then let's hope that this Gao Shaosan really has the ability to make both sides suffer." The black-robed woman transmitted her voice. Li Dashin nodded imperceptibly and raised his head to look at Qin Feiyong. In the blink of an eye, the black-haired old man's god force was ferocious, and the power he exuded was extremely terrifying. In the eyes of Li Yuntai and the others, it was like the power of the heavens. However, Qin Feiyong's expression did not change. He didn't even move, as if he had given up on resisting. Is he waiting for death? Li Yuntai and the others were flustered. Just as the divine power was about to strike, Qin Feiyong made his move. He slowly raised his arm, and a wisp of crimson grace suddenly swept out from his fingertips. A monstrous, murderous intent burst out. In an instant, everyone present felt as if they were drowned in a sea of murderous intent, and they couldn't help but feel cold all over. The black-haired old man was also shocked. This murderous intent was simply unheard of, but what surprised him even more was yet to come. Boom! Crimson grace and the black-haired old man's god force collided. Suddenly, accompanied by a deafening sound, scarlet gracefulness crushed everything in its path. That god force was no match at all. How is this possible? The black-haired old man was dumbfounded. How could a low-level god emperor destroy the god power of a half-step paragon god? Could it be that he was hiding his cultivation? While he was distracted, crimson grace entered his lower abdomen at an unimaginable speed. Ah! His scream immediately resounded through the sky. There was a bloody hole in the black-haired old man's lower abdomen, and blood was gushing out crazily. His old face was distorted by the pain. This, the people present, including the young city lord and the 10 black-armored guards, were all glaring angrily. Not only did he easily destroy the black-haired old man's god force, but he also instantly destroyed his sea of qi. Was this a dream? Then, Li Yuntai and the others cheered. Ha! There was hope, there was hope. The black-haired old man was the strongest among the people brought by the junior city master. As long as he was destroyed, everything would be fine. The junior city master and the 10 black-armored guards came back to their senses and immediately looked at the wisp of crimson grace floating in the void in front of Qin Feiyong. Their eyes were full of surprise. What was that? How could its power be so terrifying that it broke through the barrier of a big realm? Could it be that it had already surpassed the legendary level? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The black-haired old man suddenly roared as if he had gone mad. How could a mere lesser divine lord be stronger than him, a half-divine lord? It must be an illusion. Was being a half-divine lord a joke? Boom! He suddenly stared at Qin Feiyong, his eyes bloodshot. Waves of divine consciousness surged out. Oh no! I forgot that he still has divine consciousness. Li Yuntai's eyelids twitched. Even if his sea of qi was destroyed, the black-haired old man's divine consciousness was enough to kill a peak divine lord. I don't believe that you have this ability. Go to hell! The black-haired old man roared. His divine consciousness immediately turned into a torrent and swept across the sky. Qin Feiyong didn't say anything. He directly used his actions to prove his point. Swoosh! The crimson grace in front of him instantly cut across the sky and blasted toward the old man's divine consciousness. Boom! There was no room for resistance. The old man's divine consciousness was instantly shattered. The black-haired old man immediately held his head and screamed. The destruction of his divine consciousness was like the destruction of his divine soul. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. The crimson grace went straight between the black-haired old man's eyebrows like a bolt of lightning. No, a fatal crisis suddenly appeared in his heart. Staring at the crimson grace, the black-haired old man's face was full of horror. He even forgot to dodge. It wasn't his fault, because in the face of such an unbelievable thing, anyone would be as frightened as him and instinctively give up resistance. But Qin Feiyang was not moved at all. Puff! The crimson grace disappeared between the old man's eyebrows. Ah! Accompanied by a shrill scream, the black-haired old man's head exploded like a watermelon. Blood stained the sky. He's dead. The young city master, Fu Wintai, and the 10 black-armored guards stared blankly at the black-haired old man who slowly fell to the ground. A half-step divine lord was killed just like that, and he was killed in an instant without being able to fight back. It couldn't be real. It couldn't be real. The guards rubbed their eyes hard, but the black-haired old man's tragic death didn't change at all. He was really dead. A low-level divine lord killed a half-step divine lord in an instant? It was ridiculous. However, such a ridiculous thing was happening right in front of their eyes. Li Yuntai and the others were also stunned. They didn't expect Qin Feiyang's strength to be so terrifying. Li Dashan, his wife, and Li Yuan were all soaked in cold sweat. They even wanted to sneak up on him before? How naive and childish it was. Such a terrifying guy was not someone they could afford to offend. Now you should believe it. But you don't have a chance to speak. Qin Feiyang's eyes were calm as he looked at the black-haired old man falling all the way to the village below and muttered to himself, "Amazing. He's my idol. I want to worship him as my teacher. I want to be like him and punish evil." Looking at Qin Feiyang, Li Feng clenched his fists and his eyes were burning. This was his first goal in life, and that was to become an expert like Qin Feiyang. Swish! All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang looked at the young city master, Fu Wintai, and the 10 black-armored guards. This time, whether it was the young city master, Fu Wintai, or the 10 black-armored guards, they were no longer as arrogant as before. Their faces were pale, and their bodies were trembling. Their eyes were filled with fear. "I'm telling you, don't mess around. My father is the city master of Black Rock City. If you dare to touch a hair of mine, my father will bring people to flatten Yunshan village. And you can't escape death even if you run to the ends of the earth." The young man in purple pretended to be calm and said. However, he didn't pretend at all, whether it was his expression or his tone. He didn't seem confident and couldn't hide the panic and fear in his heart. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang said lightly. The young man in purple nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "It seems that you didn't take what I said at the beginning to heart." "At the beginning? What did you say?" The young man in purple was surprised. Fu Wintai and the 10 black-armored guards were also suspicious. Li Yuntai and the others were also deep in thought. Suddenly, Li Yuntai looked up at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Brother Gao, are you referring to this sentence? As long as we kill them and then go to Black Rock City to kill his father and his bodyguards, the city master's mansion won't let anyone come to Yunshan village?" When everyone heard this, they looked at Li Yuntai and Qin Feiyang. Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded. Damn. Looking at his expression, it seems that he really wants to go to Black Rock City. The villagers murmured. The young man in purple was also surprised. Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in purple and said lightly, "Even your father is going to die. Do you think that I will be afraid of your threat now?" The young man in purple trembled, both physically and mentally. He couldn't help but feel desperate in his heart. "It seems that there is no way to get rid of Yunshan village. I have to find a chance to escape." Fu Wintai thought to himself. He went to curry favor with the young man in purple in order to massacre Yunshan village. But now the young man in purple couldn't even protect himself. Why was he still following him? Courting death? He wouldn't do such a stupid thing. At the same time, Li Dashin and his wife looked at each other with flickering eyes. "Madam, what do you think we should do?" Li Dashin suddenly transmitted his voice. The woman in black looked at Li Dashin and Qin Feiyong with deep fear in her eyes. She said to herself, "No matter what you do, I will support you." Li Dashin heard this, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He glanced at Li Yuan, who was standing behind Li Yuntai, and transmitted his voice. "Attack Li Yuntai now!" What? Li Yuan was shocked. Attack Li Yuntai now? Wasn't this digging his own grave? Chapter 2369. Falling in Love with You. Translator, do as I say. Li Dashin shouted. Brother Dashin, no. Aren't we courting death if we attack Li Yuntai now? Li Yuan hurriedly transmitted his voice. Would Qin Feiyong let him go if he attacked Li Yuntai sneakily? Even the black-haired old man, a demigod, was no match for him, let alone him. More importantly, he even dared to kill people from the governor's mansion. What else did he not dare to do? If he angered this man, he would be killed in minutes. You have no choice but to listen to me, or I will tell Li Yuntai that you colluded with us. Li Dashin said secretly. What? You? Li Yuan's heart was suddenly filled with anger. If I really tell Li Yuntai, I believe you know the consequences. But if you listen to me, I promise you will survive, and you will have a chance to rise to the top. Li Dashin tempted. Rise to the top? Li Yuan was slightly stunned and said secretly, Make it clear. Attack Li Yuntai and use him as a hostage to threaten Gao Shaosen. In this way, we will save the young governor's life. As the saying goes, it is better to provide timely assistance than to add flowers to a brocade. Now the young governor is in a difficult situation. If we stand out and help him get out of danger, what will he do? He will definitely be grateful to us and will definitely put us in an important position. Then we will follow him and enjoy endless glory and wealth. Li Dashin said, If we really do this, what about the villagers? Even if Gao Shaosen is dead, the young governor will definitely not let the villagers go. Li Yuan said secretly, They are just a bunch of trash. If they die, they die. If you want to achieve great things, you have to be ruthless. Are you going to do it or not? Li Dashin shouted impatiently. Li Yuan's face was uncertain, but in the end he couldn't hold back. Driven by greed, he took out a dagger and directly stabbed Li Yuntai's heart from the back when he was not paying attention. Ah! Li Yuntai immediately screamed and looked back. His eyes were full of disbelief. Li Yuan actually sneak-attacked him? Don't blame me. Li Yuan smiled ferociously. He pulled out a dagger and placed it on Li Yuntai's neck. He looked at Qin Feiyong and shouted, Gao Shaosen, stop, or I'll kill him. When Qin Feiyong heard this, he looked down, but his expression didn't change at all. However, the surrounding villagers were enraged. Li Yuan, what are you doing? Are you crazy? Put down the dagger. The people shouted. Crazy? Li Yuan swept his gaze over the villagers and laughed loudly. It's not that I'm crazy, it's that you guys are too stupid. What did you say? Everyone glared at him. Li Yuntai is soft-hearted and has no guts. What qualifications does he have to lead our Yunshan village? Li Yuan said disdainfully. Li Yuan, you. Li Yuntai was dumbfounded. At first he thought that he was dreaming. Only when he heard Li Yuan's words did he realize that it wasn't a dream. It was real. The brother that he had always regarded as his family, who he talked to about everything, stabbed him in the back. The young man in purple, Fu Wintai, and the 10 guards were also dumbfounded. Killing each other? What kind of show was this? At this moment, there was a loud laugh. Everyone looked over and saw Li Dashin raising his head and laughing. The woman in black didn't hide it anymore. Her face was full of sneers. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He looked at the couple. When he saw their expressions, He vaguely knew what was going on, but the villagers didn't understand. Li Dashin, what are you laughing at? Is this funny? Someone said angrily. Of course it's funny. Haha, Li Dashin laughed again. When he finally stopped, he immediately took the woman in black and flew toward the young city lord. Seeing this, the 10 guards immediately stood in front of the young city lord and stared at Li Dashin and his wife vigilantly. Li Dashin smiled and said, Young city lord, don't misunderstand. I'm here to help you. Help me? The young man in purple was slightly stunned. He waved his hand and signaled the 10 guards in black to step back. The 10 of them stepped aside. Li Dashin and his wife walked to the young man in purple. How can you help me? The young man in purple asked. Li Dashin said, Young city lord, didn't you see it? I asked Li Yuan to sneak attack Li Yuntai to help you. It's because of you. Li Dashin, you really don't change. You scum. What good will it do you to hurt the village chief? Li Yuan, you're also a beast. Brother Yuntai treats you so well. He treats you like a brother. How can you treat him like this? If you still have a conscience, you should kill Brother Yuntai right now. The dozen phenomenal divine emperors in the village stared at Li Yuan angrily and find a chance to save Li Yuntai. If you dare to move, I'll kill Li Yuntai right now. Li Yuan shouted. He slightly pressed the dagger in his hand, and a bloody wound appeared on Li Yuntai's neck. Blood flowed out. Uncle Yuan, why did you do this? Did Li Dashin instigate you? Don't be fooled by him. He's using you. Li Feng ran up to persuade him. Get lost. Li Yuan kicked him. Li Feng spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground like a meteorite. Bastard! How dare you hurt Xiao Feng, who has always respected you and treated you as a family member? The 2 great success god lords immediately roared angrily and charged toward Li Yuan aggressively. Don't come over. Li Yuan shouted hurriedly. He pressed the dagger in his hand a little harder. The wound on Li Yuntai's neck became deeper. The 2 phenomenal divine emperors quickly stopped. Li Yuan sneered and stared at Li Yuntai. Don't resist. Otherwise, I'll chop off your head and go to the young city lord immediately. It's not too late to stop now. Li Yuntai was heartbroken. He trusted and was such a close brother. How could he sneak attack him from behind? How disappointing. Cut the crap. Go. Li Yuan shouted. You'll regret this. Li Yuntai took a deep breath and flew up into the sky. Weapons have no eyes. Don't come over. Stay here. Li Yuan grabbed Li Yuntai and shouted at the villagers. Soon, the 2 of them flew to the opposite side of Qin Feiyang. Don't move. Li Yuan stared at Qin Feiyang with a threatening look in his eyes. Qin Feiyang just looked at him silently. Finally, Li Yuan flew to the young city lord with Li Yuntai and said with a flattering smile, Young city lord, Li Yuntai is the bargaining chip. Bargaining chip, the young man in purple murmured. Suddenly he realized something. Young city lord, now that Li Yuntai and his daughter are in our hands, Gao Shaosan will have to hold back no matter how strong he is. Li Dashin said with a smile. Ha ha! The young man in purple laughed and looked at Li Yuan and Li Dashin. Well done. When we return to Black Rock City, I'll reward you handsomely. Thank you, young city lord. The 3 of them thanked him. The young man in purple smiled and looked down at Qin Feiyang. He said proudly, Gao Shaosan, have you seen it? This is the difference between identity and status. For someone like you who has no identity and status, no one will help you even if you beg. But for someone like me, it's different. I have a family background. Even if I don't ask, someone will take the initiative to help me. As he spoke, the young man in purple could not help but laugh proudly. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then quickly put down the divine artifact for this young master and surrender. The young man in purple shouted. Qin Feiyang laughed and asked, "What if I don't put down the divine artifact and surrender?" "That's easy. I'll let my subordinates cut the father and daughter into pieces piece by piece." The young man in purple laughed cruelly. Qin Feiyang simply took out a chair, placed it in the void, and sat down on it. He crossed his legs and said with a smile, "Please start your performance." The young man in purple was stunned. He did not care about the father and daughter's lives. Junior city governor. He must be pretending to be calm to scare us. Li Dashin sneered. Pretending to be calm? Qin Feiyang was stunned and said in surprise, "How do you know?" Li Dashin looked at Qin Feiyang and sneered. "I'm curious. Why did you betray Yunshan village? I don't think it's just to curry favor with this rich kid." Qin Feiyang said playfully, "Who are you calling a rich kid? I dare you to say it again." The young man in purple shouted. Qin Feiyang did not bother with him. He looked at the gloomy Li Dashin and said mockingly, "Not going to say it? Then let me guess. Is it because you stole my Nirvana divine tree and are afraid that I'll take revenge on you? So you chose to side with the junior city governor to survive? What? The Nirvana divine tree belongs to Gao Shaosen?" The villagers were stunned. The young man in purple, the 10 guards, Li Yuntai, Li Yuan, and Li Hu were also very surprised. Li Dashin glanced at everyone and stared at Qin Feiyang. He said angrily, "So what? You dare to touch me now?" No. To be honest, I kind of admire you. Because you're smarter than ordinary people. Your decision is also correct. Because if it were me, I would also take down Li Yuntai and side with the junior city governor. But you also made a fatal mistake. At the end, Qin Feiyang grinned. What mistake? Li Dashin frowned. You picked the wrong target. If it were someone else today, like the villagers below, your plan would definitely succeed. But unfortunately, you're facing me. I don't know how many times I've seen this kind of disgusting trick in my life. Qin Feiyang laughed. Li Dashin's pupils shrank. This person was too calm. He had not panicked from beginning to end. Did he have a backup plan? Thinking of this, Li Dashin couldn't help but feel scared. He said in a deep voice, "Junior city governor, let's go first." Go. The young man in purple raised his eyebrows. As the junior city governor of Black Rock City, if he chickened out, wouldn't you be laughed at? I always feel that this person is hiding a trump card. Junior city governor, 10 years is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. For your safety, let's retreat first. Besides, we don't need 10 years. When we return to Black Rock City, find the governor and ask him to send a few stronger people. At that time, we can make a comeback. Who can do anything to you? You can do whatever you want. Li Dashin said in a low voice. Junior city governor, I agree with Li Dashin's suggestion. Fu Wintai's eyes flashed. He also felt that something was not right. Chapter 2370. His expression and eyes were full of confidence. He didn't look nervous at all. If he wasn't pretending to be calm, he must be hiding a trump card. This person's strength was obvious to all. He could even kill a half-transcendent god. If Li Yuntai and his daughter couldn't threaten him, they would be the ones to die. When the purple-clothed youth heard this, he looked at Qin Feiyang, who was sitting on the chair. His eyes flickered. Let's go. In the end, he listened to Li Dashin and his son. He didn't want to take the risk. He heard about it. A black-armored guard immediately activated a teleportation altar. Qin Feiyang continued to watch silently and didn't stop him. Whoosh! A group of people took Li Yuntai and his daughter and jumped onto the altar. Don't be smug. You'll die soon. Yun Mountain Village. I want this place to be littered with corpses and rivers of blood. The young man in purple stared at Qin Feiyang and sneered. Qin Feiyang was still unmoved. He sat on the chair leisurely, as if he didn't want to save Li Yuntai and his daughter. Brother Gao, save Xiao He, Save Uncle Yuntai. Li Feng was very anxious. If it weren't for someone holding him back, he would have rushed forward. Brother Gao, we know you're not related to us. You have no obligation to help us. But now you're the only one in Yun Mountain Village who can stop them. Brother Gao, please save the village chief and Xiao He. It's not easy for them. The other villagers also cried out one after another, their faces full of pleading. But Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear to them. The altar was quickly activated. Crimson light dyed the sky. The villagers were already burning with anxiety. Whoosh! However, at this moment, Qin Feiyang suddenly stood up. He used the walk formula and landed beside the altar. He's so fast. The group of people was shocked, especially Li Dashin and his wife, Li Yuan, and the 10 black armored guards. Because their cultivation was higher than the young man in purple, they could feel Qin Feiyang's speed. His speed had surpassed a divine lord and reached the transcendent god level. Not only was he strong enough to kill a half-step supreme god, but his speed was also faster than a monarch god. What kind of monster was he? At this moment, Li Dashin, his wife, and Li Yuan couldn't help but wonder if this was the right thing to do. If I didn't ask you to leave, do you think you can leave? Qin Feiyang said indifferently. He slapped the altar with his palm. Crack! The legendary altar shattered on the spot. The group of people fell down in a sorry state. Li Yuan immediately grabbed Li Yuntai and placed him in front of himself like a shield. He looked at Qin Feiyang and shouted, "If you dare to move, I will kill him." In his heart, he was extremely afraid. Even his arms were trembling. Brother Gao, I beg you, you must kill these 3 scum. As for me and Xiao He, we are not afraid of death. Li Yuntai said expressionlessly. I'm not afraid either. However, Big Brother Gao, I hope that you can be kind and help Yunshan village more in the future. Li, he looked pleadingly at Qin Feiyang. Shut up. Li Dashin was furious and slapped Li Yuntai's face. A blood-red handprint appeared immediately. The purple-clothed young man also grabbed Li's neck and hung her up high, almost suffocating her. Gao the Third, you have to understand one thing. A powerful dragon can't defeat a local snake. No matter how strong you are, you can't compete with the entire city Lord Mansion. Besides, I'm not afraid to tell you that the city Lord Mansion's backer is the dragons. Can you afford to offend the mighty dragons? The woman in black seemed to be persuading him, but her tone was full of contempt. Dragons, Qin Feiyang murmured. That's right. The real owner of Blackrock City is the messenger of the dragons. His strength has reached consummate transcendent god. He can kill you like a dog. The purple-clothed young man smiled coldly. The messenger of the dragons. Dragons, Qin Feiyang murmured again. It seemed that the dragon's influence had spread to every corner of the divine land. But the point was, why did these people in the city Lord Mansion work for the dragons? Just like the young city lord and these guards. Didn't they hate the dragons? Even if they were afraid of the dragons, they didn't have to work for the dragons like a dog, right? Are you afraid? It's not too late to kneel and beg for mercy. The purple-clothed young man sneered. Kneel and beg for mercy, Qin Feiyang whispered. At the mention of the dragons, not only the purple-clothed young man, but also Li Dashin's group and the 10 black-armored guards were emboldened. Because in this divine land, no one dared to go against the dragons. Ha! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang laughed. What are you laughing at? The purple-clothed young man raised his eyebrows. Dragons? If you don't mention the dragons, maybe I'll be merciful and let you go. But you're stupid. You actually used the dragons to threaten me. As the leader of all living things, you actually turned to the dragons and worked for the dragons. I really feel sorry for you, and it's even more ridiculous. Do you think you can win by capturing Li Yuntai and his daughter? You're looking down on me too much. Qin Feiyang roared, and the blood dragon battle soul roared out. Its innate ability was instantly activated. This is Fu Wintai's expression changed. He had seen this battle soul when he sneaked an attack on Qin Feiyang at the Seven Birds Mountain. Its special ability could even imprison the 3 Black Panthers. He immediately wanted to escape. But Qin Feiyang's speed was faster than his. The Emperor Divine prison suddenly fell. The group of people was immediately imprisoned and their consciousness went blank for a moment. This moment was only limited to the 10 black armored guards, because their cultivation was higher than Li Dashen's group. They were perfect divine lords. And the worst were Li Yuan and the purple-clothed young man. The purple-clothed young man was only a perfect divine lord, while Li Yuan was only a minor divine lord. Under the Emperor Divine prison, they couldn't move at all, and their consciousness was completely taken away. If Qin Feiyang didn't take the initiative to disperse the Emperor Divine prison, they wouldn't be able to break free for the rest of their lives. Just as the Emperor Divine prison fell, Qin Feiyang took a step forward and easily saved Li Yuntai and his daughter from Li Yuan and the purple-clothed young man. "Brother Gao, thank you! Brother Gao, thank you!" The father and daughter felt like they were dreaming that they could be saved in such a situation. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and waved his hand. The father and daughter left the Emperor Divine prison. "Xiao He, Brother Yuntai, are you okay?" Li Feng and a large group of villagers immediately rushed into the sky and surrounded the father and daughter. Their faces were full of concern. Li Yuntai cupped his hands and smiled. "Thank you for your concern. We're fine." Li Feng stood in front of Li He and reminded her. "Xiao He, be careful in the future." Li He nodded. Boom! At this moment, 10 terrifying auras erupted from the Emperor Divine prison. They were the 10 black armored guards. They were the first to regain consciousness. Seeing that the young city lord and the others were also imprisoned, they immediately unleashed their auras and attacked the Emperor Divine prison like zombies. The 10 perfected Sir Gods joined forces and easily broke the Emperor Divine prison. After the young city lord, Li Dashen and his wife, Fu Wintai, and Li Yuan regained consciousness, they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. This innate divine ability was too terrifying. Once their bodies were imprisoned and their consciousness was taken away, they could only stand there and wait for death. "Why didn't you take the opportunity to kill us? You had the chance to do so just now." Li Dashen stared at Qin Feiyang and asked. Qin Feiyang said lightly, "Even ants have the right to struggle." Li Dashen clenched his fists. He really didn't take them seriously. "Kill. Even if you have to self-destruct, you must kill him." The young city lord yelled at the 10 black armored guards. Then he left the crowd behind and fled without looking back. Fu Wintai, Li Dashen, his wife, and Li Yuan also fled in fear. The 10 black armored bodyguards looked at each other, but in the end, they still charged towards Qin Feiyang, because they knew, if they fled, the young city lord wouldn't let them go even if they managed to escape. So they might as well fight with Qin Feiyang. Stubborn. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Clang! The azure phoenix sword tore through the sky, its edge rolling, accompanied by a series of screams. The black armor on the 10 black armored guards shattered. Their physical bodies were also cut into 8 pieces. Their heads and sea of consciousness were split in half. Their divine souls were annihilated and blood rained down. "So powerful," Li Yuntai murmured. His face was full of awe. Li Feng, Li He, and the younger generation of the village were full of admiration. They had never seen such a powerful person. With only the cultivation of a low-level divine lord, he could kill a perfected divine lord. Looking at the young city lord, Fu Wintai, Li Yuan, Li Dashen, and his wife, they originally thought that the 10 black armored guards could stall for a while. They didn't expect that they would be killed in seconds without even a chance to self-destruct. What should they do now? Li Dashen and his wife finally began to regret. Why were they so stupid to attack Li Yuntai? If they didn't do so, they might be forgiven by the young city lord and others if they took the initiative to apologize to this person after they died. But now, no matter what they said, the other party would definitely not let them go. Li Yuan was even more regretful. Originally, all of this had nothing to do with him, but because of Li Dashin's slanderous words. Li Dashin, you damn bastard, you really made me suffer. He was still blaming others. He didn't realize his mistake at all. If he wasn't narrow-minded and took the initiative to find Li Dashin and his wife and let them have something on him, would Li Dashin have threatened him? So, this was actually his own fault. He couldn't blame anyone. Fu Wentai shouted, "Split up and run." Split up? Won't we die faster if we split up? Brother Dashin, don't you have a space divine item? Li Yuan exclaimed. Mine is just a low-level space divine item. It can't stop a legendary divine artifact. Li Dashin's face was sullen. He turned to look at the young man in purple and asked, "Young city lord, do you have a space divine item?" "Yes, but its level is not high." The young man in purple said, "Then we can only take a gamble. I'll take my wife and Li Yuan into my space divine item. You take Fu Wentai to your space divine item. Let's split up and run," Li Dashin said in a low voice. "Okay." The young man in purple nodded. He grabbed Fu Wentai and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, Li Dashin also grabbed the woman in black and disappeared without a trace. "Brother Dashin, what about me?" Li Yuan stood in the void in a daze. Didn't he say that he would take him with him? Why did he leave him behind? However, he didn't know. Although Li Dashin said so, he didn't want to take him with him at all. Immortal God of War, immortal God of War. Chapter 2371. Falling in Love with You. Translator. First of all, Li Yuan's betrayal of Li Yuntai was enough to prove his character. Li Dashin was an old fox. How could he keep such a person by his side? Wasn't this looking for trouble for himself? Second, leaving Li Yuan behind was because they wanted him to buy them some time. Anyway, he would be killed sooner or later. It was better to make use of his value now. In other words, in Li Dashin's eyes, Li Yuan was a pawn that could be abandoned at any time. He had to admit, Li Dashin's mind was indeed different. He could scheme against others any time and anywhere, but he didn't know Qin Feiyong. In terms of intrigue, who was Qin Feiyong afraid of? Since Iron Ox Town, he had been experiencing intrigue. Along the way, he didn't know how many people he had fought, but now, his former enemies had basically disappeared from this world. So, Li Dashin should never have provoked him. How fast was the speed of the movement formula? Although Li Dashin and the others had escaped first, their speed was not comparable to the Xing formula. They didn't even have the qualification to eat the dust behind. Just as Li Dashin and the others entered the space divine object, Qin Feiyong arrived. Divine power, rolling out. A huge boundary instantly enveloped tens of thousands of miles of land. No matter how fast Li Dashin and the young city lord were, they couldn't escape the boundary in an instant. Similarly, Li Yuan was also locked in the boundary. Seeing Qin Feiyong step into the boundary, Li Yuan was so scared that he directly knelt in the void, his body trembling. "Brother Gao," I was confused for a moment and was instigated by Li Dashin and his wife. "For the sake of our friendship, please let me go. I don't want to die." I was really confused for a moment. I will definitely correct it. Wait. I will also apologize to Brother Yuntai and beg for his forgiveness, Li Yuan repeatedly shouted, his face full of fear. But Qin Feiyong didn't want to pay attention to him at all. He walked straight past him and didn't even look at Li Yuan. His eyes swept across the void. Li Yuan was stunned. Was she going to ignore him just like that? Suddenly, a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He suddenly jumped up and slapped at Qin Feiyong's back. From his point of view, no matter how strong Qin Feiyong was, he was only a small success divine lord. now that he had launched a sneak attack at such close range. He definitely wouldn't be able to react in time. Furthermore, he would definitely be able to kill him in one hit. As long as he killed this person, he would have made a great contribution, and the young city lord would definitely reward him and put him in an important position. However, while the idea was beautiful, the reality was cruel. It was as if Qin Feiyang had a pair of eyes on the back of his head. After Li Yuan approached, he turned the Azure Phoenix sword in his hand and pointed it behind him. Puchi! Just like that, Li Yuan crashed into the Azure Phoenix sword. The Azure Phoenix sword was indestructible. It immediately pierced through his lower abdomen and came out from his back. How is this possible? Li Yuan was dumbfounded. If sneak attacks were useful, then I would have died countless times in my life. Qin Feiyang said indifferently without turning his head. Such big words. What about when Li Dashin and his wife sneak attacked you? I think I almost died. Li Yuan roared. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't want to use the 6 words divine formula and the ancient castle, how could Li Dashin and his wife injure him? They probably couldn't even get close to him. Of course, it was undeniable that the 2 of them had succeeded. However, because of this, they had to die. Boom! An aura was released. Li Yuan was sent flying out of the spirit array and landed right in front of Li Yuntai and the others. Brother Yuntai, Xiao Feng, Xiao He, and everyone, I'm sorry. I was really deceived by Li Dashin and his wife. I'm confused. I'm out of my mind. Please let me go this time, okay? I will turn over a new leaf. Li Yuan immediately knelt in front of Li Yuntai and the others, begging with snot and tears. He didn't care about the wound on his lower abdomen. However, no one paid attention to him. They were all staring at Qin Feiyang inside the spirit array. Even Li Feng and Li He, who were the closest to him in the past, were indifferent and turned a blind eye. Brother Gao, don't let them go. Li Yuntai murmured. The city lord mansion was too scary. Once someone escaped and asked for help from the Black Rock City, not only would Qin Feiyang be in danger, but Yunshan village would also be unable to escape. Qin Feiyang scanned the void and then looked at the spirit array on all sides. The spirit array was calm. Li Dashin and the young city lord were indeed smart. They didn't use the space divine object to force their way out, because once they forced their way out, the spirit array would shake and the location of the space divine object would naturally be exposed. Therefore, the 2 of them stopped using the space divine object and stayed inside the spirit array, slowly wasting time with Qin Feiyang. They dared to do so because they had something to rely on, because their space divine objects were inlaid with soul-concealing stones. They were not afraid of being searched by divine consciousness. Qin Feiyang released his divine consciousness. As expected, he couldn't capture their space divine objects. However, he wasn't in a hurry. Instead, there was a hint of ridicule at the corner of his mouth. If he couldn't even solve such a small problem, then wouldn't the countless bloody battles he had experienced in his life be in vain? Swish! Qin Feiyang stepped out and landed on top of the spirit array. Withdraw! With his low shout, the divine force spirit array immediately began to shrink. Originally, the spirit array covered tens of thousands of miles, but slowly, the spirit array shrank to 10,000 miles, 9,000 miles, 8,000 miles, 7,000 miles. What does he want to do? Li Dashin and his wife, the young man in purple, and Fu Wintai stood in the space divine object, looking at this scene in surprise. Soon, the spirit array shrank to 100 miles. Clang! Following closely, the blue phoenix sword in Qin Feiyang's hand also began to recover, emitting a sharp light that could destroy the world. Oh no, he wants to use an all-around bombardment to shatter the space divine object. Li Dashin and the other 3 finally realized Qin Feiyang's purpose. The spirit array shrank to 100 miles, which meant that the attack range was also reduced. With the power of the blue phoenix sword, this range could be completely covered. In other words, Qin Feiyang's sword fell. Their space divine object had nowhere to escape. The woman in black shouted, "Dashin, we can't wait for death. Quickly break out!" Young City Lord, quickly break the spirit array. At the same time, Fu Wintai also shouted at the young man in purple. The two immediately drove their respective space divine objects and crashed into the spirit array. Clang! But also at the same time, Qin Feiyang's sword fell, and the spirit array was instantly shattered, and the void was immediately flooded by the sword light. Clang! Sparks appeared in the void. This was the sword chi of the blue phoenix sword colliding with Li Dashin's space divine object. Crack! Following closely, accompanied by two loud sounds, the two space divine objects shattered on the spot. Li Dashin and the other three also fell out. Without the protection of the space divine object, the sword chi that filled the sky immediately drowned the four of them. However, at the same time, Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the sword chi dissipated into thin air. Li Dashin and the other three were slightly stunned, and turned to look at Qin Feiyang in surprise. If they didn't disperse the sword chi, they would definitely die, and they would die without a complete corpse. But why did he suddenly disperse the sword chi? Didn't he want to kill them? But that shouldn't be the case. If he didn't want to kill them, then why did he chase after them? He could have just let them leave. The black-haired old man is dead, the 10 guards are also dead, and now even the space divine object is gone. I want to ask, what other means do you have to escape? Qin Feiyang looked at the four of them indifferently. Hearing this, Li Dashin and the other three couldn't help but feel despair in their hearts. That's right. Besides the artifact, what other trump cards did they have? But the artifact in their hands, in front of the legendary artifact, was simply a joke. Very desperate, right? Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. The four of them were silent. Yes, very desperate. They had never been so desperate before. Wait, you haven't killed us again and again. Is it because you want to see us despair? Li Dashin was surprised. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He was seen through? He said with a smile, "You're indeed smarter than the average person. You devil, torturing us, destroying us, what's the point?" Li Dashin roared. "I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine, because you've also tortured Yunshan village a lot. Of course, I want you to have a taste of despair." Qin Feiyang said. "What does this have to do with us? The people who tortured Yunshan village before were the young city Lord and Fu Wintai. If you want to torture them." Li Dashin shouted. "In my opinion, you're more abominable than them. You've helped the young city Lord by attacking Li Yuntai, but for Yunshan village, it's one disaster after another. Now, you two just stand there and watch how they end up," Qin Feiyang said as he took a step forward and landed in front of the young man in purple. "Don't!" The young man in purple was horrified, as if he had seen the god of death, and directly collapsed on the ground. Qin Feiyang said lightly, "Do you still remember how you treated Li Feng?" The young man in purple shouted, "It's not me, it's the commander. But you gave the order." The azure phoenix sword flew out of his hand and floated beside him. Qin Feiyang grabbed the young man in purple's neck with one hand and his left arm with the other. With a little bit of force, the left arm was torn off. "Ah!" The young man in purple suddenly screamed. His face was distorted by the pain. This kind of forceful pulling was countless times more painful than a simple cut with a sword. That was a hellish torture. Not to mention, as the young city lord of Black Rock City, he was spoiled since childhood. How could he suffer such torture? Just as Qin Feiyang tore off his right arm, he fainted on the spot. But how could it be so simple? Qin Feiyang tore off his right leg, and the tearing pain woke him up again. "Kill me, kill me!" The young man in purple howled. This kind of feeling was worse than death. It was better to die. Before, when the villagers begged for mercy and even knelt on the ground to beg you, I didn't see you being merciful. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and tore off another leg. This time, all 4 limbs were gone, just like Li Feng at that time. Devil. Fu Wentai, Li Dashin, and the woman in black looked at this scene, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. Chapter 2372. Even the purple-clothed young man with a powerful family background was tortured so badly. What about them? They had no family background, and no background, wouldn't it be worse? Every scream of the purple-clothed young man was like a sharp knife stabbing into their hearts. Panic, despair, uneasiness. But the people of Yunshan village were very happy, especially Li Feng. Everyone had a vengeful heart. Not long ago, he was tortured by the black-haired old man. Now, seeing the purple-clothed young man in this state, he was very happy. His mentality was finally balanced, comfortable. Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, "My father won't let you go." "I won't let you go even if I become a ghost," the purple-clothed young man roared silently. He couldn't scream anymore. His consciousness was already dissipating. He had never been tortured like this since he was a child. "You are a perfect stage war god. Don't daydream all day." Qin Feiyang shook his head and waved his hand. The purple-clothed young man flew to the feet of Li Yuntai and the others like a meteorite. Li Yuntai and the others looked at each other. Was he going to let them deal with him? At the same time, Qin Feiyang looked at Fu Wentai, Li Dashin, and the black-clothed woman. The 3 of them knelt in the void and begged for mercy. In my dictionary, there is a sentence that says you have to pay the price for doing wrong. Qin Feiyang said lightly, "We have knelt down and admitted our mistakes. What else do you want? Don't push us too far." The 3 of them roared. But before they finished their words, 3 blood-red lights instantly entered their qi-si. Their qi-si was immediately shattered. The 3 of them were in extreme pain. "What can you do if you push us too far? Now, you don't even have a chance to self-destruct." Qin Feiyang said lightly. The 3 of them fell into the abyss of despair. Accompanied by shrill screams, Qin Feiyang also broke their limbs and threw them in front of Li Yuntai. Li Yuntai was stunned. "Deal with them as you see fit. Their Qian Kuan rings and divine weapons will also belong to Cloud Mountain Village." Qin Feiyang put away the blue phoenix sword and turned to look at Li Yuntai. Li Yuntai clenched his teeth and nodded. "All right, I will take care of it." "All right then. Remember my words. If anyone asks, don't mention me." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he took a step forward and rose into the air. "Brother Gao, where are you going?" Li he hurriedly shouted. "Big Brother Gao, I want to be your disciple. You must accept me." Li Feng also knelt in the void and exclaimed, "I'm just going out for a walk. I'll be back. As for becoming a disciple, find someone else." Qin Feiyang smiled without looking back. Soon, he disappeared from the sight of the group of people. Li Feng was at a loss as he looked in the direction Qin Feiyang had disappeared. Will he really come back? Li Yuntai murmured, but a smile gradually appeared on his face. Regardless of whether he returned or not, he would never forget this person for the rest of his life. Immediately, Li Yuntai withdrew his gaze and looked down at Li Feng. He sighed. "Feng, don't blame Uncle for his harsh words. You must know your place." "Uncle!" Li Feng's body stiffened. He looked up at Li Yuntai. This person must have a great background. He won't take a fancy to talents like you and Xiaohe. Get up quickly. Although he won't accept you, you still have to work hard and set him as your goal, because you are the pillar of our village in the future. Li Yuntai smiled. "I know." Li Feng took a deep breath, got up and nodded heavily to Li Yuntai. Li Yuntai smiled with relief. He turned to look at the villagers behind him and shouted, Everyone must also remember, regarding Gao Shaosen, you must keep it a secret. Everyone nodded. In the sky above a barren ridge, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and carefully sensed the location of the 3 Black Panthers. The slave seal could not only sense the location of the other party, but also transmit sound from 1,000 miles away. In short, no matter how far away they were, they could communicate with each other. Of course, the premise was that they were in the same area. For example, Qin Feiyang was in Shenzhou, and the 3 Black Panthers were in the northern region, or Dongling. There was no other way. Very soon, Qin Feiyang sensed the 3 Black Panthers and immediately asked them to come and join him. Whoosh! About an hour later, accompanied by the sound of air being torn apart, the 3 Black Panthers arrived in front of Qin Feiyang like lightning. Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, "How's the harvest these days?" "Nothing much." The 3 Black Panthers shook their heads. "I see." Qin Feiyang could not help but feel disappointed. One of the Black Panthers waved its paw. 2 herbs and a divine jade appeared. The 2 herbs were a flower the size of a baby's palm and a grass the size of an adult's palm. The flower had 3 petals. The grass also had 3 leaves. But no matter if it was the flowers or the grass, all of them were completely like flames that flowed with the glow of treasures, and they were filled with shocking intelligence. The most important thing was their roots were still there and they could be planted again. As for the divine jade, it was about the size of an adult's thumb and seemed to be made of magma. It was flawless and surrounded by flames. An earth flame flower, a heaven flame grass, a condensing divine jade. This is what we got these days. The 3 Black Panthers looked extremely dispirited. This person would definitely not be satisfied with these herbs. But on the contrary, Qin Feiyang was extremely excited when he saw the earth flame flower, heaven flame grass, and condensing divine jade. How could this be called nothing? One had to know. Whether it was the 3 herbs for the Nirvana divine pill or the 4 herbs for the chaos divine pill, they were all extremely precious. It was already a stroke of luck to be able to find 3 such herbs in just a few days. When he first heard the 3 Black Panthers say that they did not get anything, he thought that they did not even find one. It really scared him. "Don't you blame us?" The 3 Black Panthers looked at him suspiciously. "You guys worked so hard to find the herbs for me. Why would I blame you?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and found it funny. One of the Black Panthers said, "But these 3, it's already very good." Qin Feiyang nodded. The 3 beasts heard and immediately heaved a sigh of relief. They were afraid that Qin Feiyang would blame them. It seemed that this person was quite easy to talk to. Qin Feiyang looked at it for a moment and sent the earth flame flower, heaven flame grass, and condensing divine jade to the ancient castle. He also instructed the fire lotus to immediately plant the earth flame flower and heaven flame grass in the medicinal field. These 2 herbs, a petal and a leaf, could already be refined into one elixir. In other words, a complete earth flame flower and heaven flame grass could be refined into 3 elixirs. And these herbs, after being planted, would sprout and grow new petals and leaves soon after being picked. Therefore, regarding this, the 3 Black Panthers should be praised, because if they did not pull out the roots, they would not be able to plant. That, since you are satisfied, then the legendary level divine artifact. Do you think the 3 Black Panthers rubbed their claws and looked at Qin Feiyang expectantly? Legendary level divine artifact? Qin Feiyang was stunned. His face immediately darkened and said speechlessly, 3 herbs and you want a legendary level divine artifact? Do you think that this level of divine artifact is like radishes and cabbages that can be found everywhere on the streets? The 3 beasts smiled embarrassedly. In fact, they had already expected that it would be impossible, so they were not too disappointed. Qin Feiyang laughed. "Continue to help me find it. When I am satisfied, I will definitely give you a legendary level divine artifact." "We are all serious. Don't go back on your word when the time comes. One of the Black Panthers said, Don't worry. I have a lot of legendary level divine artifact. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and a scarlet giant sickle, a white dagger, a dragon-shaped iron rod, and the azure phoenix sword appeared. The giant sickle belonged to the fire dragon. The dagger belonged to Sumo's sister. The dragon-shaped iron rod was called the coiling dragon rod. It belonged to Sumo. The azure phoenix sword belonged to Feng Zihan. What? There are actually 4 legendary level divine artifacts. The 3 beasts were dumbfounded. Is this a lot? Qin Feiyong laughed. The 3 beasts smiled bitterly. Even an ultimate god was not qualified to have a legendary level divine artifact. But now a lesser divine lord actually had 4 of them. Was this not a lot? Was this low-key? No. This person was showing off and showing off. A Black Panther asked carefully, if there are 4 legendary level divine artifacts, then wouldn't there be more peak level divine artifacts? Peak level divine artifacts? Qin Feiyong was stunned and shook his head. I really don't know how many there are, but I think there are at least 10 or 20. With a legendary level divine artifact, who would care about a peak level divine artifact? So, all these years he had directly thrown the peak level divine artifacts into his universe ring. If he looted the treasury, he would directly throw them to the Fire Lotus to organize. He didn't even want to look at them. Therefore, he really didn't know how many there were. Maybe a dozen or 20 pieces were too few. So many? The 3 beasts looked at each other. When they came back to their senses, they looked at Qin Feiyong in unison, like 3 big wolf dogs. They stuck out their tongues and flattered him. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. After searching for a moment in the universe ring, he found 3 peak-level divine artifacts and threw them to the 3 beasts, saying, Here you go. Thank you, the 3 beasts laughed. Although a peak-level divine artifact was not comparable to a legendary-level divine artifact, there were not many peak-level divine artifacts in the Black Rock City area. It could be said that a peak-level divine artifact was enough to cause a bloody storm here. And for Qin Feiyong, 3 peak-level divine artifacts could make these 3 Black Panthers help him find medicinal herbs wholeheartedly. It was an extremely cost-effective deal. Qin Feiyong asked, Do you know the location of the Black Rock City? Of course. It's 4 teleportation altars away from us. The 3 beasts nodded. So far, Qin Feiyong was shocked. One had to know. From the land of the undead to the Sky Dragon City, there were only a dozen teleportation altars. In other words, just from Cloud Mountain Village to the Black Rock City, it was almost a third of the northern region. The Black Rock City area was only the tip of the iceberg of the Divine Land. Moreover, the Divine Land must have all kinds of incomparably large forbidden areas. It was really unimaginable how big this land was. Immortal War, God Immortal War God. Chapter 2373. Give me the coordinates. Qin Feiyong calmed himself down and looked at the 3 beasts with a smile. Are you going to Black Rock City? The 3 Black Panthers stared at him in surprise. Let's go for a walk. Qin Feiyong nodded. I'm afraid it's not as simple as a walk. The 3 Black Panthers cursed in their hearts, but they didn't ask much and gave Qin Feiyong 4 coordinates. I hope that the next time we meet, you can give me a bigger surprise. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly and activated the teleportation altar. Wait. Suddenly, one of the Black Panthers stopped Qin Feiyong. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong looked at it suspiciously. Through the last coordinate, you will appear above a canyon. There is a black wolf in the canyon. It's ferocious by nature and has a hobby of teasing you humans. But it has a good relationship with us. At that time, if it runs out and attacks you, please don't make things difficult for it. The Black Panther said, Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and smiled. What if it makes things difficult for me? Just say that it has something to do with us. I want to hear this, and it won't make things difficult for you. And it has lived near Black Rock City for tens of thousands of years and knows Black Rock City like the back of its hand. It will definitely be able to help you, the Black Panther said. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, jumped onto the altar, and left. Boss, are we really going to continue to help him find herbs? One of the Black Panthers looked at the other two and asked, What else? Don't forget, he hasn't come into contact with our control. Found it. Maybe at that time he will really give us a legendary divine artifact. At that time, within a few million miles, who can be our opponent? The two Black Panthers laughed proudly. But we, as beasts, actually have to listen to the orders of a human. If word gets out, how can we establish ourselves in the beast world? The Black Panther said unhappily, How much is face worth? Don't be long-winded. Now that we all have pinnacle divine artifacts, the humans and beasts in this area are no longer a threat to us. For the sake of efficiency, let's split up and search. Finally, we will meet up in Black Rock City. The Black Panther boss said, All right, big brother, third brother, take care of yourselves. I'll make a move first. After saying that, Black Panther took the pinnacle divine artifact and flew away in high spirits. Second brother, you're really impatient. Third brother Black Panther was displeased. Isn't it after the legendary artifact? Third brother, don't say I didn't warn you. Even if he's willing to give us a legendary artifact, there's only one. When the time comes, whoever finds the most herbs among the three of us will get this legendary divine artifact. After saying that, the Black Panther turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the mountains below. You should have said so earlier. I won't lose to you. Third brother Black Panther roared and immediately rushed into the mountain below to search carefully. Black Rock City, just as its name suggested, it was a city built from pieces of black stones. The city walls were black. The streets in the city were black. The buildings in the city were also black. It covered an area of tens of thousands of miles and had a population of tens of millions. It was an ancient city that had existed for countless years. Outside the city, the mountains were stacked and the ancient trees towered into the sky. The traces of fierce beasts could be seen everywhere. As for their cultivation, they were all war gods and divine lords. It was rare to see divine beasts, but it wasn't that there weren't any. Fierce beasts of this level were basically hiding in the depths of the mountains to cultivate. If you didn't disturb it, it would never take the initiative to provoke you. At this moment, just north of Black Rock City, in a large canyon, a man and a woman, about 20 years old, exuded an extraordinary temperament. They each held a supreme-grade divine artifact in their hands and were fighting a black wolf with their lives on the line. Both of their cultivations were half-step divine lords, but the black wolf's cultivation had reached perfect divine lord. Moreover, it also had a supreme-grade divine artifact. There was no suspense. Facing such a powerful black wolf, both of them were covered in wounds and looked extremely miserable. Damn beast, we didn't provoke you. We were just passing by. Why did you attack us? The young woman roared angrily. Passing by? Do you think I'm stupid? Don't you know the real purpose of coming here? The black wolf snickered. It was simply toying with the two of them. Otherwise, with its perfect divine lord cultivation and supreme-grade divine artifact, it would have ended their lives long ago. Swoosh! But at this moment, a figure descended in the sky above the canyon. It was a young man with dark skin. He wore a black robe and his eyes emitted a cold light. The black wolf and the man and woman stopped at the same time and looked at the black-robed young man. Brother, help us. The man and woman immediately called for help from the young man. They realized that they couldn't see through the black-robed young man's cultivation, which meant that he was stronger than them. But the black wolf flashed a look of disdain. Ask him for help? Are you stupid? Don't you know that his cultivation is only a small success, divine lord? The black wolf looked at the man and woman. His fierce eyes filled with mockery. What? Only a small success, divine lord. The man and woman were extremely disappointed. Boy, since you delivered yourself to me, I won't be polite. Stay there and don't move. After I kill them, I'll deal with you slowly. The black wolf stared at the black-robed young man and snickered. Then it opened its bloody mouth and pounced at the man and woman. Ah! The black-robed young man was stunned. He didn't seem to have provoked this black wolf before. The black-robed young man waved his hand and said, Hey, stop. Answer me a question. The black wolf was slightly taken aback. It turned to stare at Qin Feiyang, its eyes flashing fiercely. The man and woman also looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Facing the perfect divine Lord Black Wolf, he wasn't nervous at all. Do any of you have the coordinates of the Black Rock City Lord Mansion? The black-robed young man looked at the black wolf and the man and woman and asked with a smile. We know the location of the city, Lord Mansion. As long as you save us, we'll bring you there. The man and woman hurriedly said. What about you? The black-robed young man looked at the black wolf and asked. It definitely doesn't know, because beasts can't enter the Black Rock City. The man and woman said again. I see. The black-robed young man nodded in realization. He revealed a smile that he thought was very kind. He looked at the black wolf and said with a smile, On account of your friend, I won't kill you. Hurry up and leave. That was right. This person was Qin Feiyang. As for the black wolf, it must be the friend of the 3 black leopards. You won't kill me? The black wolf looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Was this person sick in the head? A mere small success divine lord dared to boast shamelessly in front of a perfect divine lord? If you don't leave, I'll be angry. The consequences of my anger are very serious. Qin Feiyang said. Ha. When the black wolf heard this, it immediately laughed out loud. This person was definitely sick and very sick at that. Otherwise, how could he say such a stupid thing? Wait, but suddenly, the black wolf's expression froze. It seemed to have ignored a sentence. It looked at Qin Feiyang and said suspiciously, Just now you said that on account of my friend, you won't kill me. What kind of friend do I have? The 3 black leopard brothers of the 7 Birds Mountain. Qin Feiyang said. So it's them. The black wolf suddenly realized, but immediately after, there was a touch of disbelief in its eyes. It knew the character of the 3 black leopard brothers too well. How could they become friends with humans? Could it be this person had already killed the 3 black leopard brothers and then pretended to be a friend of the 3 black leopard brothers to deceive it? With this thought, the black wolf's eyes suddenly flashed with a fierce light. Despicable human, I will kill you to avenge them. Accompanied by a roar, the black wolf immediately awakened the supreme-grade divine artifact and charged toward Qin Feiyang. That supreme-grade divine artifact was a black iron fork, glowing with a black light. Despicable? Revenge. Qin Feiyang was startled and hurriedly dodged, frowning. What are you doing? He can actually dodge it. A man and a woman were unbelievable. The black wolf was also surprised and said, So you have some ability. No wonder you can kill the 3 black leopard brothers. Kill the 3 black leopard brothers? Qin Feiyang was slightly startled and said with a wry smile, It's a misunderstanding. I didn't kill them. On the contrary, I'm friends with them. What a joke! With this emperor's understanding of them, how could they be friends with humans? You dare to do it, but you don't dare to admit it. The black wolf ridiculed, its body expanding with the wind, instantly becoming more than 100 feet tall, baring its teeth, ferocious aura surging. Aolo! Following closely, it let out a wolf howl, opened its bloody mouth, and pounced towards Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He never thought that there would be such a misunderstanding. It seemed that he had to calm this guy down first. Clang! The coiling dragon rod appeared. He gripped the coiling dragon staff and swung it down. Aolo! The black wolf immediately let out a wail, its head bleeding, and like a meteorite, it smashed into the canyon below, never to get up again. So strong! The man and the woman were dumbstruck. To be able to heavily injure the black wolf with a single strike, what kind of holy artifact was that iron rod? Immediately, a hint of greed appeared in the depths of their eyes. Quick! Kill it! Seeing the black wolf lying on the ground with serious injuries, the young man's face immediately surged with killing intent, and then he brought out his top-quality, holy artifact and charged towards the black wolf. Hearing this, the young woman also immediately charged over. While you're sick, I'll take your life. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and shouted, What are you doing? Brother, wolves are the most vengeful creatures. If we don't take the opportunity to kill it now, we will definitely suffer its revenge in the future. The man and woman did not stop, their killing intent soaring. Shua! Qin Feiyong teleported and stood above the black wolf, frowning. It was me who heavily injured it. I didn't say anything. What qualifications do you have to attack? The man and woman froze in the air, somewhat angry out of humiliation. How could he help a beast? Sure enough, as the black wolf said, this person was crazy. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, Quit while you're ahead. Hearing this, the man and woman glanced at the coiling dragon rod in Qin Feiyong's hand, a trace of fear in their eyes. The young man said coldly, Fine, don't regret it, let's go. Your kindness now will make you pay a heavy price in the future. The young woman also snorted coldly. Then the two of them left without looking back, not even a word of thanks. After all, if it weren't for Qin Feiyong, they would definitely have died under the black wolf's claws today. Chapter 2374. Qin Feiyong retracted his gaze and looked down at Hei Lang, saying, Can you listen to me properly now? Hei Lang used all his strength and staggered to his feet. Blood flowed from his head. With this strike, not only was his head broken and bleeding, even his soul was severely injured. As for his sea of consciousness, it had already been shattered. Otherwise, with his cultivation, it was impossible that he didn't even have the strength to stand up. Qin Feiyong took out a sea of consciousness pill and a soul pill and threw them to Hei Lang. Hei Lang grabbed them, looked at them, and threw them into his mouth. He looked at Qin Feiyong and asked, You really didn't kill them? Nonsense. Not only did I not kill them, but I also gave each of them a peak-level divine artifact. Qin Feiyong said, Humans are so generous. Besides, are peak-level divine artifacts cabbages? One for each of them, bragging without a draft. Hei Lang was disdainful. Qin Feiyong was both amused and helpless. He swung the coiling dragon rod. What are you doing? Hei Lang immediately jumped up. Qin Feiyong said, I'm too lazy to explain to you. I'll just kill you. Don't. Let's talk nicely. Hei Lang hurriedly exclaimed. Qin Feiyong said, Do you believe me now? Yes. Hei Lang nodded repeatedly. So reluctant? Qin Feiyong frowned. Hei Lang said repeatedly, Not reluctant, I really believe you. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. He put away the coiling dragon rod and said, Actually, if you think about it seriously, you should be able to think that if I really killed the 3 black leopard brothers, would I let you go now? Seems like it. Hei Lang pondered for a while and nodded. Qin Feiyong asked, The 3 black leopard brothers told me that you know Black Rock City like the back of your hand. Yes. Why? Hei Lang looked at him suspiciously. What about the city lord's mansion? Qin Feiyong said. The city lord's mansion. He Lang's pupils immediately constricted, and there was an unresolvable fear in his heart. Qin Feiyong asked, You know the city lord's mansion? Who doesn't know about the city lord mansion? However, this city lord's mansion is truly a dragon's lair and tiger's den. Why are you asking about this? He Lang was bewildered. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, All right, take me to the city lord's mansion now. What? He Lang's eyes widened as he looked at Qin Feiyong in shock. Following closely, its body quickly shrunk to about 1 meter long. Then, it waved its claws again, and the supreme grade trident turned into a stream of light and disappeared into its body. Immediately, it seemed to have discovered something. It suddenly stared behind Qin Feiyong and exclaimed, Look, what's that? Qin Feiyong was stunned and immediately turned to look. However, he saw nothing in the void behind him. Just as Qin Feiyong turned his head, He Lang laughed sinisterly and rushed towards the depths of the canyon without looking back. Was he fooled? Qin Feiyong turned around and stared blankly at He Lang, who had disappeared from his line of sight. He was quite crafty. However, want to slip away from under his nose? Was that possible? To the city lord's mansion? You must be crazy, not to mention that you're just a friend of the 3 Black Panther brothers. Even if you're their father, I won't accompany you to your death. He Lang turned around and saw that Qin Feiyong did not chase after him, so he started cursing loudly. No, this place has been exposed. We can't stay here any longer. Move immediately. After rushing all the way to the deepest part of the canyon, He Lang stopped in front of a small mound. The small mound was about 2 meters tall and overgrown with weeds. At the top of the small mound, there was a pure white lotus. It was about the size of a baby's fist and had a total of 9 leaves. Each leaf seemed to be carved out of precious jade, like a snow lotus, suffused with a hazy divine light. Looking at the lotus, He Lang's eyes lit up. 9th grade immortal lotus. An exclamation suddenly sounded behind He Lang. The black wolf immediately quivered and turned its head to look. It saw that Qin Feiyong was actually standing behind it at an unknown time. He Lang was about to speak, but when he saw Qin Feiyong's fiery gaze, he immediately pounced on the 9th grade immortal lotus. Don't hurt its roots. Qin Feiyong's expression changed, and he immediately shouted. He never thought that there would be a 9th grade immortal lotus here. The 9th grade immortal lotus is mine. What does it have to do with you? He Lang pulled out the 9th grade immortal lotus with one claw and stared at Qin Feiyong as if guarding against a thief. Qin Feiyong heaved a sigh of relief. Although He Lang's actions were a bit rough, he did not hurt the 9th grade immortal lotus's leaves and roots. In other words, it could be replanted. Every leaf of the 9th grade immortal lotus could be refined into a pill. So even if he lost a piece, his heart would ache. Let's talk nicely. As long as you give me this 9th grade immortal lotus and take me to the city lord's mansion, I will give you a good fortune. Qin Feiyong tried his best to speak in a calm tone as he looked at He Lang and smiled. Good fortune? He Lang was stunned, his eyes rolled, and said, If you can give me a pinnacle-level divine weapon, I will give you the 9th grade immortal lotus. As for going to the city lord's mansion, that's another story. So cheap? Qin Feiyong was stunned. No matter what others thought, he felt that exchanging a pinnacle-level divine weapon for a 9th grade immortal lotus was a good deal. However, if he agreed so easily, He Lang might increase the price at the last minute. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed slightly and said in a deep voice, Don't ask for too much. Go to the Black Rock City and see how many people have pinnacle-level divine weapons. I don't care. In short, if you don't have a pinnacle-level divine weapon, let's talk face to face. Of course. If you are willing to give me your legendary level divine weapon, I will not only give you the 9th grade immortal lotus, but also take you to the city, Lord's mansion. Hei Lang chuckled. In your dreams. I only have one legendary level divine weapon. If I give it to you, what will I use? Qin Feiyang snorted coldly, looking very troubled. So, I only want a pinnacle level divine weapon. Isn't that very reasonable? Hei Lang said narcissistically. Yes, yes, yes. I have never seen such an understanding wolf like you. Qin Feiyang was speechless. Then what are you hesitating for? Hei Lang said. All right, I'll give it to you. Qin Feiyang nodded reluctantly. Whoosh! However, at this moment, a sharp sound of breaking through the air was heard. A fatal crisis immediately engulfed his heart. Qin Feiyang grabbed Hei Lang without hesitation and rushed to the side. Boom! As soon as he left, a black arrow pierced through the air like lightning and blasted into the small mound. With a loud bang, the small mound was of course shattered. The mountain peaks on all sides of the canyon also instantly collapsed. How dare you sneak attack me? Hei Lang was furious. No, he should be trying to kill me. Qin Feiyang shook his head. A man and a wolf soared into the sky, glancing gloomily at the devastated canyon, and then looked up at the void in front of them. But as far as their eyes could see, there was no one. No one. Hei Lang raised his eyebrows. Over there. Qin Feiyang pointed to a giant mountain not far away. At the top of the mountain, a middle-aged man stood impressively. His body was thin and he wore a black robe. His pair of eyes were a bit long and narrow, like a poisonous snake, emitting a trace of cold light. And in his hand, he held a jet-black divine bow that emitted a faint light. Behind the black-robed man, there was a young man and a young woman. It was the man and woman from before. So it's them. I knew they weren't just passing by. They must have rushed to the 9th grade immortal lotus. Hei Lang's eyes flashed fiercely. Qin Feiyang stared at the three of them with a flash of ridicule in his eyes. He smiled at Hei Lang and said, Then you should thank me. Thank you? Hei Lang was stunned and sneered. Are you stupid? Why should I thank you? That middle-aged man should have been hiding in the dark, looking for a chance to kill you in one shot. In other words, that man and woman were just bait to confuse you. If I didn't appear just now with your carelessness, do you think you could have escaped the middle-aged man's sneak attack? Qin Feiyang said. Who said so? Don't look down on me. Carelessness is only on the surface. In fact, I have been secretly vigilant. Sneak attack me? It's not that I look down on them, but I wouldn't be afraid even if there were 10 of them. Hei Lang's face was full of disdain, but in his heart he was indeed a little grateful to Qin Feiyang, because no matter how confident he was, he didn't dare to say that he couldn't block the sneak attack of a pinnacle divine artifact. Are you sure you're not afraid? Qin Feiyang said. Of course I'm sure. Hei Lang said proudly. Okay then, go and take care of them. That middle-aged man isn't very strong. He's just a perfected divine lord. As for the divine bow in his hand, it's only a pinnacle divine artifact. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. A pinnacle divine artifact. Hei Lang's pupils shrank as he looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Since you're the brother of the 3 black leopard brothers, then you're also my brother. It's too strange to talk about this between brothers. The speed at which he changed his attitude was faster than flipping a book. Qin Feiyang's face twitched and said, Not brothers, just friends. Hei Lang said, Good friends, isn't that equivalent to brothers? Qin Feiyang said, Since we're brothers, then this 9th grade immortal lotus and the city lord mansion. Isn't it just a 9th grade immortal lotus? What's the harm in giving it to you? As for the city lord mansion, for my brother, I'll be willing to sacrifice my life. Hei Lang didn't blush and roared righteously. Shameless. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched fiercely. This guy was even worse than the white-eyed wolf. At the same time, the middle-aged man in black also stared at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Originally, he was full of confidence that he could kill Qin Feiyang in one shot. But he didn't expect that the other party's reaction was so fast that he actually dodged his fatal arrow. Brother Yunqing, you must kill him and snatch the legendary divine artifact. That's right. As long as we get this legendary divine artifact, then in the Black Rock City, except for the City Lord Mansion, no one is a match for our Wu family, the young man and woman urged. Don't worry, not only the legendary divine artifact, but also the 9th grade immortal lotus. Today it will be ours. The man in black smiled coldly. Since he had been discovered, there was naturally no need to hide anymore. He took a step forward and landed in front of Qin Feiyang and He Lang. The young man and woman followed closely behind the man in black, staring at Qin Feiyang with cold smiles on their faces. Qin Feiyang sighed and said, "Is this how you repay your savior?" "We didn't ask you to save us. You were the one who wanted to meddle in our business, and you want us to repay you. Are you an idiot?" The two of them sneered mercilessly. Chapter 2375. For a moment, Qin Feiyang was speechless. He had seen a lot of ungrateful people, but after being ungrateful, he could still insult his benefactor so confidently. This was the first time he had seen someone like that. This shouldn't be considered a human, right? Because even a dog knew how to repay a favor. If you know what's good for you, hand over the legendary level artifact immediately. I can consider leaving you an intact corpse. The black-clothed man looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh, looked at the black-clothed man and asked, "You are from the same family?" The black-clothed man nodded. "Black Rock City." Qin Feiyang asked again. "Black Rock City, Wu family." The black-clothed man said proudly, "Don't be so proud. I don't know how strong the Wu family is, but one thing I can see is that your Wu family is not very united." Qin Feiyang laughed. "Don't talk nonsense. You don't even know the situation of my Wu family. How do you know that we are not united?" The black-clothed man said angrily. "It's very simple." Qin Feiyang pointed at the man and woman and said with a smile, "I judged it from their actions." The black-clothed man frowned. The man and woman also looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. "If I'm not wrong, you didn't tell your clansmen that there was a 9th grade immortal lotus here. You wanted to take it for yourself. But when you sneaked into the canyon, before you could do anything, you were discovered by Black Wolf. You were very desperate, because Black Wolf was too strong. But coincidentally, I appeared here, so you asked me for help. Maybe at that time, you were indeed grateful to me in your hearts. But when you saw that I had a legendary level artifact, this gratitude directly turned into greed. What happened next, you don't need to think to know. You weren't willing to give up just like that, so you pretended to leave and sent a message to this person, asking him to come and help. Although this way, you will no longer be able to obtain the 9th tier immortal lotus, nor will you be able to obtain the legendary artifact in my hands. As long as you succeed, you will have done a great service to the Wu clan. In any case, no matter what the final result is, you will not suffer any losses. Am I right?" Qin Feiyang looked at the man and woman and smiled. "Are you following us?" When the man and woman heard this, their faces became extremely gloomy. "Following you?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Do you think I'm in the mood?" "I don't believe it. No matter how smart a person is, it's impossible to guess everything. Who are you? Why are you following us?" The two of them were furious. It wasn't their fault. Anyone else would have done the same. "Wait, why is it different from what you told me just now?" He Lang looked at Qin Feiyang and frowned. "What's the difference?" Qin Feiyang was startled. Hei Lang pointed at the man in black and said, "Didn't you just say that he's been hiding nearby, waiting to ambush me with a fatal blow?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I'm lying, don't you know?" "You bastard," Hei Lang snapped. To think that it was actually a little grateful before. It did not expect him to be tricking it. Humans were indeed not good. "You're the stupid one. If he was really there, do you think he would hide in the dark and ambush you with the peak-level artifact in his hand? He would have jumped out long ago to steal the 9th-tier Immortal Lotus and kill you 1,000 times over." Qin Feiyang twisted his lips. "Bastard, shameless, scum, scum," Hei Lang kept cursing. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. He looked at the man in black and said calmly, "Are you still going to deny what I said?" The man in black's face darkened. He turned to the man and the woman and said, "Didn't you say that you just found the 9th-tier Immortal Lotus?" "Brother Yunqing, don't listen to his nonsense. We really just found it. Yes, 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 after we found it, we immediately sent a message. After being together for so long, you still don't know who we are? How could we keep the 9th-tier Immortal Lotus to ourselves?" The two of them quickly defended themselves. The man in black glanced at the two of them and turned to Qin Feiyang and said, "Thank you for your reminder. I'll ask the Patriarch to pay attention to this in the future." Obviously, he already believed Qin Feiyang's words. "No need. I'm just not used to this kind of petty person who thinks he's very smart." Qin Feiyang smiled calmly. The man and woman were extremely flustered. Who exactly was this person? If he really did not follow them, then his mind was too scary. It was as if he saw it with his own eyes. "When we return to the clan, they will pay the price for the mistakes they made today. But you, don't think that I'll let you go just because of this. Hand over the legendary artifact and the 9th-tier Immortal Lotus immediately. You should know that even if you have the legendary artifact, you are not my opponent because my cultivation is much higher than yours." The man in black said, "Confidence is a good thing, but overconfidence is conceit. To be honest, to deal with you, I don't need to do it myself." Qin Feiyang chuckled, took out the coiling dragon rod, and threw it to Hei Lang, saying, "Take it." This, Hei Lang grabbed the coiling dragon rod and looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. He actually gave it to it? The man in black was also dumbfounded. A legendary divine artifact was thrown to a ferocious beast as if it was nothing but dirt? All of a sudden, the man in black looked at the man and woman and asked, "Didn't you say that they don't know each other?" "They don't know each other. Not long ago, he gave Hei Lang a hit and almost killed it." The two of them were also dumbfounded. If they don't know each other, would he be at ease to give the legendary artifact to that wolf cub? "Do you think I'm stupid?" the man in black said angrily. "They really don't know each other. We're not lying to you." The two of them were burning with anxiety. The man in black's face was gloomy. The coiling dragon rod in Qin Feiyang's hands and in Hei Lang's hands were two different concepts. If the coiling dragon rod was in Qin Feiyang's hands, then he was confident that he could defeat Qin Feiyang with the pinnacle artifact in his hands, because his cultivation was 3 small realms higher than Qin Feiyang. But the coiling dragon rod in Hei Lang's hands became different, because Hei Lang was also a perfected divine lord. Naturally, the difference in their cultivation levels would disappear. Now he was at a disadvantage, because the coiling dragon rod was 1 level higher than the divine bow in his hands. In short, Qin Feiyang just threw it casually and the situation was reversed. "Go!" Suddenly, the black-robed man roared and swept up the man and woman. Then he flew away without looking back. In this situation, was there still a need to fight? If he didn't want to die, he had to escape. Qin Feiyang glanced at Hei Lang, who was still in a daze, and said, "Why aren't you chasing?" Okay. Only then did Hei Lang react, hurriedly nodded, and charged towards the 3 of them with the coiling dragon rod. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly, activated the concealment art, called him the Xing word art, and followed behind Heilang unhurriedly. Haha, with a pinnacle artifact, what are you running for? Come, come, come. If you have the guts, fight with this emperor for 300 rounds. Heilang laughed wildly. With a rod in hand, I have the world. The man in black's face was full of panic. He stared at the man and woman and said in a deep voice, "When we go back, I'll slowly settle the score with you." Heard it. The man and woman trembled. If they really returned to the clan and let the patriarch know about this, would there be a good ending? Suddenly, the two of them looked at each other, and a dense killing intent appeared in their eyes at the same time. Following closely, both of them took out a dagger, and while the man in black was not paying attention, they directly stabbed into the man in black's back. The man in black's chi was shattered on the spot. What? The man in black was in disbelief. He actually sneak attacked him? Sorry, you asked for it. If you didn't tell the patriarch, we wouldn't have made this decision. The two of them sneered. He snatched the divine bow from the man in black's hands. You're courting death. The man in black was furious, and his divine sense rolled out. The man and woman seemed to have expected this and immediately retreated. This, Heilang and Qin Feiyang, who were invisible in the void, were also a little stunned when they saw this dramatic scene. Who would have thought that the three of them would kill each other? Lord Heilang, this pinnacle artifact is for you. The man and woman did not escape. They ran in front of Heilang and respectfully handed the divine bow to Heilang, because they knew, with their cultivation and speed, it was impossible for them to escape from Heilang. So, instead of making a futile struggle, they might as well be straightforward and give the divine bow to Heilang. Heilang might be happy and let them go. Heilang looked at the two of them and then looked at the divine bow. He instinctively took it, still in a state of confusion. Lord Heilang, we helped you solve such a big problem and even helped you get a pinnacle artifact. Can you make up for our mistakes and let us go? The two of them smiled flatteringly. Let you go. Heilang was slightly stunned. He finally recovered and lowered his head to look at the two of them. The two of them had a fawning look on their faces. Heilang looked at the man in black again. Although his chi was destroyed, the man in black did not sit still and wait for death. He controlled his body with his divine sense and desperately fled. Heilang grinned and rushed forward like lightning, swinging the coiling dragon rod and smashing it. No, the man in black roared. But not only did Heilang not show mercy, his fierce eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty light. Bang! The coiling dragon rod fell. The man in black's head suddenly exploded. His divine soul was also annihilated on the spot. Looking at this scene, the man and woman panicked to the extreme. How dare you snatch my things? You really don't know what's good for you. Heilang smiled disdainfully and plundered the man in black's universe ring. Then he took the coiling dragon rod and the divine bow and walked toward the man and woman step by step. Don't kill us. We really know that we were wrong. Please, I beg you, let us live. The two of them were so scared that they knelt down in front of a wolf and kowtowed repeatedly. Humans are indeed all cowardly trash. Heilang's face was full of contempt. Its eyes rolled around as if thinking about how to torture the two of them. But suddenly, a figure appeared in its mind. What about the human? It hurriedly scanned the void, looking for Qin Feiyang's trace. No one. Did he not follow? Was he still in the depths of the canyon? Immediately. Heilang laughed evilly. He didn't follow, right? Then I won't be polite. It looked greedily at the coiling dragon rod and the divine bow. A peak-level divine artifact, a legendary divine artifact, and the 9th grade immortal lotus were still in its hands. This time it had really made a big profit. Originally, it still wanted to torture the two of them, but now it was not in the mood. For this legendary divine artifact, it naturally had to escape quickly. Roar! It let out a roar and returned to its original form. It opened its bloody mouth and savagely swallowed the man and woman. Then it happily took the two divine artifacts and disappeared into the mountains below without looking back. Chapter 2376. Not long after Hei Lang left, 5 or 6 middle-aged men and women dressed as hunters quickly flew over. They were hunting nearby. Just a while ago they heard that there was a battle here, so they came over to take a look out of curiosity. The battle is over. There seems to be the aura of a beast. "Look, there's a headless corpse!" someone pointed below and exclaimed. The others immediately looked down, and their faces turned pale. This headless corpse was naturally the man in black. So miserable. It's obvious that his head was smashed into pieces by something, but who is he? Without a head, it's hard to tell. The few of them surrounded the corpse, their eyes full of suspicion. Who cares who he is? Let's see if there are any treasures on him. One of the slightly plump, middle-aged men suddenly grinned and squatted on the ground to search the corpse, making a fortune from the dead. However, Hei Lang had already plundered everything. Why would it be his turn? Very soon, there was a trace of disappointment on this person's face. But then, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he took out a token from the man in black's clothes. "This is—" The others surrounded him and looked at the token curiously. The token was black. There was a word Wu engraved on it. "Isn't this the Wu family's token?" Could he be from the Wu family? Wait. Don't you think that this person's figure is a little familiar? After hearing what you said, it is indeed a little familiar. Look, there's a scar on his left shoulder. I've seen this scar before. I already know who he is, the younger brother of the Wu family head. Who is so bold to kill him? And he is a perfected Sir God. After guessing the identity of the man in black, the few of them were shocked. Quick, send him to the Wu family. We will definitely get a reward. The few of them carried the man in black's body and flew toward Black Rock City. At the same time, Black Rock City east side, in a dense forest, a 1-meter-long black wolf scanned the surroundings sneakily. It should be safe here. A moment later, Hei Lang chuckled and ran to a rock. He placed the 9th rank Immortal Lotus, the Coiling Dragon Staff, the Divine Bow, and an interspatial ring neatly on the rock. Legendary Divine Artifact, Pinnacle Divine Artifact, and this interspatial ring, I wonder how many treasures there are in it. Looking at these things, Black Wolf's eyes glowed green. Following closely, it grabbed the Cosmos ring, dripped blood on it, and claimed ownership of it. Then it checked the treasures inside. So many soul stones, so many divine crystals, so many pills. Immediately, its body shook and its face bloomed with joy. Brother Black Panther, don't blame me for not upholding justice. I don't want to scam your friend either. It's just that his legendary divine artifact is too tempting. Hei Lang put down the interspatial ring, grabbed the coiling dragon rod, and rubbed it lovingly. He also found a dignified excuse for himself. However, it did not know that Qin Feiyang was standing right in front of it. Looking at the big black wolf's face at this moment, Qin Feiyang's face darkened. His veins bulged, and he wanted to kick it. This guy's conduct was indeed comparable to that of a white-eyed wolf. What should I do next? Have fun. Show off to those old guys, or take a nap first. People are in high spirits when they're in a good mood. This life is really wonderful. No, it should be a wolf. A wolf is in high spirits when it's in a good mood. A wolf's life is so wonderful. Hei Lang couldn't stop laughing. Qin Feiyang couldn't stand it anymore. He snatched the coiling dragon rod from Black Wolf's claws. Black Wolf was stunned. It immediately looked around, and its fierce eyes were full of anger. Who was it? How dare he snatch the food from the wolf's mouth? But then, The interspatial ring, the divine bow, and the ninth grade immortal lotus disappeared without a trace in an instant. Bastard! Come out and die for me. Black Wolf was furious. His immortal will appear like a tide, covering the sky and the earth in all directions. Aren't you looking down on me too much? Qin Feiyong appeared, and his eyes flashed coldly. You, Black Wolf's fierce eyes widened in shock. When did this person catch up with him? How dare you take my things? Do you want to die? Qin Feiyong raised the coiling dragon rod and smashed it at Black Wolf. Brother! Black Wolf immediately fell to the ground. Qin Feiyong was startled. Brother, I didn't mean to. I just saw that you were missing, so I kept it for you for the time being. Brother, heaven and earth are witnesses. I didn't mean to take the coiling dragon rod for myself. Look at how kind and cute I am. Do you have the heart to hurt me? Hei Lang cried out tearfully. Qin Feiyong's face kept twitching. This bastard really had a talent for being an actor. Brother, we're friends, brothers. Think about it. How can a loyal wolf like me covet my brother's divine artifact? I'm really keeping it for you. If you don't believe me, I swear in the name of the 3 black leopard brothers. If there's half a lie, they will be struck by lightning. Hei Lang roared righteously. What the hell? Qin Feiyong looked at Black Wolf with a dumbfounded face. He finally saw what true shamelessness was. He swore in the name of the 3 black leopard brothers. If the 3 black leopard brothers knew about this, what would they think? They would probably sigh that they had made careless friends. Huff! Qin Feiyong took a deep breath, put away the coiling dragon rod, and said with a dark face, Let's go to the city, Lord Mansion. Isn't it just the city, Lord Mansion? What a small matter. I'll take you there right away. But brother, the city Lord Mansion is full of experts. How can a small village threaten the young city lord? Besides, isn't there still the commander? The commander is a half-step supreme god. It's easy for him to deal with a small village. The guard smiled. That's true. The city lord nodded and smiled. You should also start preparing for the Dragon God Palace. The Dragon God Palace? The guard was stunned for a moment. Then he slapped his head and smiled. Look at my memory. There are only 2 years left for the once-in-a-century event. The city lord smiled and waved his hand. Then quickly go and arrange it. Yes, the guard replied respectfully. Boom! Just as the guard was about to turn and leave, 2 powerful auras suddenly descended from the sky above the city, Lord Mansion. One was the aura of a human. The other was the aura of a beast. Not only did they not hide it at all, but they also carried a shocking, murderous intent. The city lord raised his eyebrows. The guard's eyes were also filled with coldness. How dare they brazenly barge into the city, Lord's mansion, without prior notice or permission? They must be tired of living. The guard was about to rush out. Whoosh! But at this moment, a man and a wolf suddenly descended outside the gate. Who is it? How dare you barge into the city Lord Mansion? You're courting death. The 20 or so black-armored guards guarding the hall immediately waved their spears and surrounded the man and wolf. The city lord and the guard in the hall also stared at the man and wolf coldly. It was a dark-skinned young man dressed in black. His cultivation was not strong, only a low-level divine lord. However, facing a group of perfected divine lord black-armored guards, he was not afraid at all. He was calm and composed. The wolf next to him was a black wolf. It stood on the ground and looked very lively, but there was a big bump on its head. It looked quite funny. Chapter 2377. That's right. The man and the wolf were Qin Feiyong and Hei Lang. The big meat bun on Hei Lang's head was naturally beaten up by Qin Feiyang. This guy was so shameless that people would feel uncomfortable if they didn't beat him up. More than 20 bodyguards were ferocious. However, Qin Feiyang directly ignored him and stepped into the palace hall. Seeing this, He Lang shrank his neck and hurriedly followed in. A group of guards also rushed into the hall and surrounded Qin Feiyang and He Lang. So many perfect divine lords. This is like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. He Lang stood next to Qin Feiyang valiantly, but he was extremely flustered. However, Qin Feiyang's expression didn't change. It was as if he had returned to his own home, looking here and there. "Who are you? What's your purpose of breaking into my city, Lord's mansion?" The city lord stared at Qin Feiyang gloomily and shouted, "The decoration is gorgeous and imposing. It suits the identity of a city lord." Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear and commented on the layout in the hall. The city lord frowned. Where did this guy come from? A group of black-armored guards also looked at him with disdain. He was simply a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. But, on the other hand, it also reflects that you are not a good city lord, because generally responsible people will not do this kind of superficial work. In the years when you took office, you must have used the power in your hands to extort a lot of people's money. Qin Feiyang looked up at the city lord and smiled. "How dare you?" The city lord was furious and shouted to a group of black-armored guards, "Take them down!" No one had ever dared to enter the city lord's mansion without notifying in advance, not to mention breaking in. But now, not only did this person break in, but he also mocked him in front of his face. Did he think that the city lord was a decoration? Following the order, a group of black-armored guards immediately rushed towards Qin Feiyang and He Lang with bared fangs and brandished claws. "It has nothing to do with me. He was the one who wanted to come. I was forced by him." "Big brother city lord." No, 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 city lord. The heavens are benevolent. If you want to find trouble, go find him. "Don't find me." Black Wolf was immediately stunned. What a joke. Over 20 perfect-grade war gods, all equipped with supreme-grade divine weapons and divine armors. Wouldn't they be able to kill him in a matter of minutes? A wise man submits to circumstances. It was an elite among the wolves. Qin Feiyang looked at it with disdain, then glanced at the guards around him. He looked up at the city lord and smiled. "Don't you want to know about your son's current situation?" "Yinner." The city lord was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Stop!" The group of black-armored guards immediately braked and stopped. "You know my son?" The city lord looked at Qin Feiyang gloomily. "Of course." "We've met not long ago." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Met?" The city lord was stunned and asked, "Cloud Mountain Village?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. The city lord said, "Is he still in Cloud Mountain Village?" "Of course. Not only now, he will also be in Cloud Mountain Village in the future." Qin Feiyang said, "What do you mean? Could it be he fell in love with a woman in Cloud Mountain Village and wants to settle down in Cloud Mountain Village?" The city lord frowned. He had never thought that his son was already dead, because he was confident that no one would dare to hurt his son in the area under the jurisdiction of Black Rock City. "Settle down?" Qin Feiyang was a little stunned. He nodded and smiled. "It seems to be the same. Anyway, he will stay in Cloud Mountain Village for the rest of his life." Looking at the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, the city lord felt that something was wrong. Qin Feiyang did not explain further. He glanced at the guards around him, who were also confused. He looked at the city lord and asked, "Are all the guards around you here?" The city lord nodded instinctively. "That's good. I don't have to look for them." Qin Feiyang smiled. "What are you going to do?" The city lord said angrily. "What am I going to do? Isn't it obvious? I'm going to send you to hell." Qin Feiyang chuckled. "What? Send us to hell?" Is he talking in his sleep? A low-level divine lord dares to speak so arrogantly. The group of guards looked at each other. He must be a fool. The city lord sat on the chair, his hands grabbing the armrests on both sides of the chair. His face was full of mockery. But suddenly, his expression froze. This person did not come with good intentions. He had seen Yun in Cloud Mountain Village. Could it be that Yun had met with misfortune? Impossible. If the commander did not follow, this possibility could not be ruled out. However, the commander was by Yun-Er's side. He was a half-step divine lord. How could a small Cloud Mountain village hurt him? As for the man and wolf in front of him, a low-level divine lord and a perfected divine lord. With the commander's strength, he could kill them instantly. Laugh. Laugh as much as you want. Because this is the last time. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Sir, I can't hold it in any more. This kid is too arrogant. Let me kill him. A black-armored guard shouted. The other black-armored guards also stared at Qin Feiyang angrily. Brother, can you keep a low profile? Look, there's so many perfected divine lords. And that bullshit city lord. Even I can't see through his cultivation. He must be a divine lord. You still dare to provoke them like this? Aren't you courting death? Hei Lang was anxious. He had never seen such an arrogant person. Bullshit city lord? That's a pretty good way to address me. It is indeed a bullshit city lord. Qin Feiyang laughed. Hei Lang was stunned. Immediately after, it sensed a bone-chilling gaze directed at it. He quivered and hurriedly looked at the city lord. With a flattering smile, he said, City lord, I'm not talking about you. I'm saying, who is he talking about? He didn't know, because there was only one city lord here. Kill them. The city lord was furious and roared. A group of guards laughed and immediately pounced on the man and wolf. I've really suffered because of you. God, I beg you, in the next life, don't let me bump into this fiend again, okay? Hei Lang cried out in grief. Can you be a little more promising? I've lost all my face. Qin Feiyang's face was dark as he kicked over again. Following closely, he swept his gaze at those fierce-looking guards and sneered. A group of ants actually dared to jump out and jump around. Still arrogant? There's no hope, there's no hope. Hei Lang shook his head. This was the craziest human it had ever seen. There was no one who could compare to him. Still calling us ants? This bastard kid, if we don't let him suffer a little, he won't know how much he's worth. Don't kill him. I want to torture him well and let him see the reality. Arrogant, you have to see who the opponent is. A group of guards gritted their teeth. Qin Feiyang lifted the corner of his mouth, and a strange invisible force suddenly surged out like a torrent. What's that? Hei Lang was surprised. Although this invisible force did not hurt it, it could clearly feel the threat of death. What? The next moment, its eyes suddenly widened, full of disbelief. The moment the 20 or so black-armored guards were swept by the invisible force, they immediately fell stiffly to the ground. The most important thing was, there was not the slightest wound on their bodies, as if they had suddenly died of exhaustion. Only screams echoed in the main hall, lingering for a long time. What's going on? What the hell? Not only Hei Lang, but the city lord also suddenly stood up, looking at those guards with a look of surprise. Died just like that? No way. He carefully observed the situation of those guards. There was no fluctuation of life, no breath, no heartbeat. What was this if not a sign of death? Swish! All of a sudden, the city lord stared at Qin Feiyang as if he was looking at a monster. How did he do it? Qin Feiyang glanced at Hei Lang and said, They all died before they could make a move. Tell me, if they're not ants, what are they? Hei Lang came back to his senses and stared blankly at Qin Feiyang. In his heart, he couldn't help but feel a chill. He never thought that this person still had such a terrifying method hidden. If this person had used this method to deal with him outside the city, then now thinking of this, Hei Lang couldn't help but shiver. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat. He smiled flatteringly. Brother, you're really too fierce. You're simply my idol. Brother, accept me as your underling. I'll follow you from now on. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. Hei Lang chuckled and immediately pounced on those guards, plundering their Qinquan rings and the top-grade divine artifacts that fell on the ground. It didn't even let go of the black armor on those guards. It was clean, and not a single hair was left. Qin Feiyong shook his head helplessly, turned around, and walked to the chair at the side. He sat on it and looked up at the city lord. The city lord was still in a daze. It wasn't his fault, because anyone who saw this scene would find it hard to face it. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Tell me immediately where the city lord's mansion's treasure vault is, or you'll end up like them. Qin Feiyong laughed. Treasure vault? As soon as Hei Lang heard these 3 words, his saliva flowed out. Compared to the city lord's mansion's treasure vault, what he was plundering now was nothing. He immediately ran to Qin Feiyong and squatted beside Qin Feiyong like a little lamb, obedient and obedient. The city lord finally came to his senses. Swish! He immediately looked at Qin Feiyong with murderous intent in his eyes. Not only did he kill his personal guards, but he also tried to enter the city lord's mansion's treasure vault. His arrogance was boundless. Most importantly, his son, the commander of the bodyguards, and the 10 bodyguards who had followed him had most likely met with misfortune. Do you know what cultivation level I am at? Beginner god. Killing you is as easy as killing a dog or a chicken, and that Cloud Mountain village. This city lord will personally lead my men to kill them all. This is the price you have to pay for angering me. The city lord suddenly let out a loud shout. An overflowing pressure surged towards Qin Feiyong like a raging wave in the ocean. Boom! The main hall instantly collapsed and shattered. The terrifying aura rolled in all directions, alarming everyone in the Black Rock City. Chapter 2378. What's going on? Why is the city lord so angry? In the city, people looked at the city lord's mansion in surprise. It's the city lord's bedroom. Everyone, follow me to take a look. Inside the mansion, it was also a mess. Groups of guards quickly rushed to the main hall. Although the main hall was razed to the ground, Qin Feiyong was still sitting on the chair calmly. Black Wolf was also motionless. In fact, it was pretending to be calm. After all, the city lord was a beginner god. When a god was angry, blood would flow for thousands of miles. Looking at the city lord again, he was like a furious beast staring at Qin Feiyong. Not only will this city lord kill you, but I will also chop off your head and hang your corpse at the city gate. I will let the world know that this is the result of provoking the city lord's mansion. Little bastard, die. He waved his big hand, and a wave of divine power rolled out, pouncing toward Qin Feiyong. Black Wolf couldn't bear it anymore and ran away. But at the same time, Qin Feiyong also made a move. A wisp of blood rushed out and blasted toward the city lord's divine power. A monstrous killing intent also erupted. Boom! Immediately, that god power was like a withered tree that was easily crushed into pieces by the blood-colored light. What? The city lord's body stiffened. Black Wolf looked back and was also dumbfounded. What the hell was that? Even the city lord's divine power couldn't block it? What a terrifying killing intent. Who is so bold to go to the city lord's mansion to cause trouble? At this moment, the people of Black Rock City looked at the city lord's mansion in horror. This killing intent, at the same time, in a luxurious tea house, a woman in red was sitting in a corner. elegantly drinking tea. Even if there was such a big commotion in the city lord's mansion, she didn't go to take a look. She was very calm, but when the killing intent appeared, she suddenly stood up and stared at the city lord's mansion in surprise. It's him. That's right. I can't kill this killing intent in my entire life. Qin Feiyang. The woman in red's face turned cold. She took a step forward and left the tea house. Miss, you haven't paid yet. One of the workers hurriedly chased after him. However, the woman in red had already disappeared without a trace. City Lord's mansion. How is this possible? The city lord and Black Wolf were both mumbling. A low-level divine sovereign had actually been able to shatter the divine power of an early-level paragon god. There seemed to be no other explanation for this other than a dream. But now, this scene had truly appeared before his eyes. Why is this happening? Wait. Could it be that he was hiding his cultivation? The city lord suddenly regained his senses and shouted, "Who are you?" But before he could finish speaking, his expression abruptly changed, and his eyes widened in anger and were filled with fear. Fire Lotus also knew the seriousness of the situation and immediately summoned her axe and said to the artifact spirit, "No matter what, we can't let Qin Dage get injured. If it's just to escape with him, there's no problem at all." The artifact spirit said. Outside, Qin Feiyang's mind moved, and the axe suddenly materialized. Clang! There was not a single word. The axe directly slashed towards the sky, and a monstrous aura surged out. That pressure was blocked. But without unlocking the seal, the axe was not Long Zun's opponent at all, even though she was only a clone now. After all, when they were in the Sky Dragon Sea, Qin Feiyang activated the slaughter domain. Facing Long Zun's clone, he could only be abused. But fortunately, Qin Feiyang and Black Wolf, who were standing on the altar, were also rapidly fading away. They were about to be teleported away. So, as long as the axe could block it, even if it was only for half a blink of an eye, it was enough. There's still a long way to go. Let's fight again in the future. The axe did not continue to fight and entered the altar in a flash. Boom! The terrifying pressure of the dragon race instantly covered the sky and covered the earth. But before the pressure came, one man, one wolf, and the axe were finally teleported away. When the pressure came, the altar immediately turned into ashes. Damn it! Long Zun was furious. This was not the first time. To think that, as the strongest person in the ancient world, she could not do anything to a small Sir God, it was really a great shame. Greetings, Lord Long Zun. A black-robed old man flew out of the city, landed behind Long Zun's clone, and respectfully knelt in the void. Who are you? Long Zun raised her eyebrows. I am the Black Dragons. Under the orders of the Patriarch, I have been guarding Black Rock City. The black-robed old man said. That's right. He was the backer behind the City Lord Mansion. A perfected god. Guarding Black Rock City? Then why didn't you know that Qin Feiyang entered Black Rock City? Why did you only come out now? Long Zun shouted angrily. Qin Feiyang? The black-robed old man was surprised. Although he had been staying in Black Rock City, the news about Qin Feiyang had long spread among the dragons. So, he also knew about Qin Feiyang's existence. He also knew that Qin Feiyang was Long Zun's biggest problem. In other words, the person who made a scene in the City Lord Mansion was Qin Feiyang that everyone had been looking for? Mother, you can't blame him. After all, he has never seen Qin Feiyang in person, and Qin Feiyang has changed his appearance. The princess of the dragons said, Mother? The black-robed old man was shocked again and hurriedly said, Greetings, your highness. This strange woman was actually the princess, because the princess of the dragons had also changed her appearance. He did not recognize her. N. The princess of the dragons nodded. looked at Long Zun's clone and said, "Mother, don't worry, I will find him again, and at that time, I will definitely not let him escape." Long Zun's clone nodded, turned into a stream of light, and entered the princess of the dragons, Glabella. The black-robed old man heaved a sigh of relief. The princess of the dragons looked at the place where the altar was shattered, and a hint of anger flashed in her eyes. She looked at the black-robed old man and asked, "Do you know why Qin Feiyang came to the city lord mansion?" The black-robed old man shook his head and said, "This subordinate has been cultivating in seclusion, so I don't know. I know this person too well. He would never kill the city lord for no reason. Go and investigate immediately. You must give me an answer within half an hour." The princess of the dragons shouted. "Yes," the black-robed old man respectfully responded, and immediately turned and flew towards the city lord mansion. "Qin Feiyang, let's see how long you can escape." The princess of the dragons clenched her hands, and killing intent flashed in her eyes. Outside the city, Qin Feiyang, Black Wolf, appeared in the sky above a canyon. This was Black Wolf's lair. The axe was also floating by the side. "So scary. Just now I really thought I was going to die." Black Wolf weakly lay in the void, panting. Qin Feiyang was also covered in cold sweat. He thought that if he entered the Black Rock City, he might meet the princess of the dragons, but he never thought that there would be a clone of the dragon sovereign. Fortunately, he didn't rush to kill the princess of the dragons on impulse. Otherwise, it would have been another bloody battle. It didn't matter if it was a bloody battle, but he was afraid of hurting those innocent people. Ever since he saw the destruction caused by the unsealing of the heaven-defying artifact, he didn't want to do that again. Although war is ruthless, it should be avoided as much as possible. Besides, now that the castle was sealed again, even if he unsealed the axe at all costs, he couldn't beat the dragon sovereign. Black Wolf recovered, looked at Qin Feiyang, and asked, "Big brother, who are those two women just now?" "The dragon sovereign, the princess of the dragons." Qin Feiyang said. "What? How did you provoke them?" He Lang jumped to his feet, his face filled with fear. Although he hadn't seen the dragon sovereign and the princess of the dragons with his own eyes, in the entire divine continent, who didn't know of their existence. They were the rulers of divine continent. So what if I provoked them? As expected, Qin Feiyang was right. "You're just a useless coward." The artifact spirit snorted. "You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.